Okay, we are going to start. Good evening, everyone, to the Fitchburg Common Council meeting for the January 10th, 2024 meeting. So the first thing in the agenda is to call to the order to the meeting, and then second, pledge of allegiance. Please stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next is roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Alder Allen. Is he absent tonight?
It seems so, yeah. For now.
Mayor Radafrada.
Here.
Alder Gerhardt.
Here.
Looks like Alder Herbst is absent as well.
He's absent with excuse.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Alder Jetzer.
Here.
Alder Maldonado.
Here.
Alder Strassman.
Here.
Alder Udell.
Here.
Alder Wheeler. Here. You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. So next we move to public appearances for non-agenda items. Do we have any non-agenda item? No. Okay. So next we move to the consent agenda. I need a
Move
motion.
to approve. Second.
All those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The motion carries. So next we move to the administrator report.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope you all had enjoyable holiday season. Some initial announcements to kick off the new year. The Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative grant program has kicked off for 2024. Applications are being accepted through February 9th. You may contact Deanna Schmidt in our planning department with any questions related to the grant program, and information regarding the grant as well as how to apply is available on the city's website.
Administrator breakfast. Remind me, is there any breakdown in terms of like the criteria by like how many grants or how much funding goes to each of the 4 neighborhoods?
Let's see, you're testing my recollection. I think we had
it's okay if you don't know.
roughly 60 to 75,000, and if I recall correctly, and we may need to refer to Gabriella's notes here, 15,000 was identified for Southdale again this year specifically, which would leave approximately 60,000 or so available for the other priority neighborhoods.
But we have $50,000 more in the budget.
That could be. I'm not
Yes,
recalling that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I put it there.
Yeah,
so.
that's fine.
So, there is another $50,000.
Can you check your notes, Gabrielle? No, just kidding. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine.
I don't remember that.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Let's see. Tax collection has been occurring, obviously, since the tax bills were mailed out. Our finance director has shared that there have been a few hiccups with the tax software, payment software that the county has asked us to utilize this year, but by and large, collection has gone well. As of last week, approximately $43 million in tax collection has been processed here just in the city of Fitchburg. Of course, that includes all of the taxing jurisdictions on the property tax bill, not just Fitchburg's. The PSC, I think you are aware that we filed a rate case with them last year. They have reviewed that rate case, and they are recommending a 7.92% increase in our water rates, which would equate to an approximate 10% increase in a residential user's utility bill, water utility bill. There is a hearing scheduled for February 14th. On the rate case, and virtual attendance at that hearing is an option. The strategic plan for the city, the request for proposals has been sent out. We are giving, I think, through the month of January for consulting firms to respond to that RFP. We're hoping to have a completed strategic plan for the city this summer. That was in the RFP for a completion date. couple of upcoming neighborhood meetings and/or open houses related to development projects in the city. January 18th, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., there is a neighborhood meeting / open house here at the Community Center, 5510 Lacey Road, in regards to a proposed solar development project on the east side of Muchler Road, north of Whalen Road. And also on January 18th at 7 p.m., and also at the Community Center located at 5510 Lacey Road, a developer who is proposing a project in Swan Creek at the vacant lot on East Sherrill near, I believe, Big Blue Stem. They're having a neighborhood meeting to talk about that project there. On some other good news front, the city recently received a $10,000 donation from the Optimist Club to be used for ongoing maintenance costs associated with the splash pad and inclusive playground at McKee Farms Park. So we certainly thank them for their gracious donation. And then finally, I want to thank the City Council for your flexibility in rescheduling the meeting due to the weather yesterday. And I also want to thank our essential workers and public safety employees who are out yesterday throughout the weather, keeping our roads clear and safe and continuing to respond to emergencies. So thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, just in general, when the city releases an RFP, is that public information that all of us can get our hands on somehow, and if so, how?
So we typically post it on a site called Quest. I think it's Quest CDN. I think that's publicly available information. Obviously, that's where any of the vendors would look for things typically. I'm not certain if we have a spot on our website where we post all of our RFPs, but that is perhaps something we could consider doing.
Okay. I spent like 9 total seconds at questcdn.com, and it was asking me to log in.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I think we had this conversation, didn't we, Alder Wheeler?
Yes, we did.
Let me see if we can address that. Yeah.
Not saying that we have to do this, but just a suggestion, if there's an RFP that's been like discussed in council extensively, perhaps we could consider referring it out in the consent agenda, just for reference for the council.
We could do that. If you prefer, I can just email them too.
Yeah, that works too. Maybe that's easier.
Let me know. It's a little less legwork from city staff to put it into agenda, or for me to email it than put it into an agenda. So, any other questions? Thanks.
Okay, so next we move to commission and committee reports, and we are going to start with Plan Commission, Gabriela.
I move approval of Resolution R 24123, request by Gary Gorman, agent for Gary J. Gorman Legacy Trust, to approve a certified survey map to allow the subdivision of 1 agricultural tract into 2 agricultural parcels on property located off Kane Road.
Second.
So this is, it was passed by Plan Commission.
Oh, yes. What about Ag and Rural Affairs?
Yes, Ag and Rural Affairs approved as well.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a family-owned property. Their son is moving home to hoping to build a home on the family land. So they're splitting it into 2 parcels by the AX zoning guidelines. The new parcel has to be at least 35 acres, and in order to have the new residence there, it has to be occupied by an individual who earns more than 50% of their income from the land. Both of those will be, that ordinance is met by this project. So it was approved, and so that's it.
Any question, comments?
Just one comment. I believe it's Gary Gorman's son that's going to be moving on this property.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but I'm sorry if you did, if I missed that. It's just an important note that it's staying another generation.
Okay, Bill, yes.
Yeah, just a couple questions out of curiosity. This thing kind of piqued my interest. It looks like they're going to have a driveway that's about a 1/4 mile long. The fire department is going to be okay with that? I imagine they're going to have some kind of a big turnaround there. I mean, they got to get the trucks in and out.
Chad can't turn on his mic. Here, Chad.
I mean, that was one of the conditions that was in there. I was just, wondering how that's going to work in practice.
So the city does have an ordinance that requires driveways over a certain length to be a certain width for that very reason, to allow access for fire department and ambulances that are obviously typically larger. And this development or housing proposal would have been sent to the fire department as well, so that they would have had an opportunity to comment on it.
I have one more question. I noticed that, I don't know, something between a quarter and a third of this lot is wooded. And I was just wondering what would have happened if more than 50% of this land was woodland? Because the definition of a farm is, land under common ownership that is primarily devoted to agricultural use.
I think some of it is a tree farm.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
I think the home is also going to be built within that wooded area. That's the
There was a clearing in there that they're going to build on.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? No? All those in favor of resolution R-241-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so next one.
I move approval of Resolution R-24223, request by Clinton Collins, agent for Sub-Zero Wolf, Inc., and Fitchburg Real Estate, LLC, to approve a certified survey map in order to consolidate two parcels into one, in order to create one buildable lot on property associated with 2825 Buds Drive.
Second.
Okay. Did Plan Commission approve?
Yes.
Okay, what is this, Gabriela?
So this is the Sub-Zero Wolf property. They are not exactly sure what they're going to use it for, but they did want to have it prepared to build on in the future. They said possibly it could be more office space, it could be more space for the barn property that they have, or more space for their team. So they're just getting this ready for the future.
Any question, comments? All those in favor of resolution R-242-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, approve.
And more things from Plan.
Okay.
We talked about the North Stoner Prairie Minor Comp Plan Amendment at the meeting. It did pass. And then in addition to those two resolutions, we did a pre-application for the Fitchburg Police Station, asked some questions there, but that will return to the Plan Commission. And then we had a short discussion about the neighborhood plan. So I believe there was a Greenfield neighborhood plan meeting last week to talk more extensively about that. But those two, Greenfield and South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plans, are still underway. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do you know when the minor com amendment is coming to council for approval? Is February 12th?
I think it's the 13th, which
The
is,
13th. Okay.
I believe that's the case.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriela. Any question for Gabriela for the Plan Commission? No? Okay. So next we move to Board of Public Works. So, Bill.
Yeah, I didn't specifically prepare for this. I wasn't aware that Dave was going to be absent here. I will move approval of ordinance 2023-0-22, amending Chapter 68, Article 4, Division 2, prohibited parking, adding blah, blah, blah.
Okay, did Board of Public Works approve?
Public Works approved.
Did the TTC approve?
TTC approved with an amendment.
Second. Just
Yeah.
there was a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know how you're going to explain this with, what it is and then what is the amendment that TTC incorporated to the resolution, and then we have Tim, available too, so for any other details. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a couple parking restrictions we're going to put in on the segments of roads. So Chapel Valley has a segment that's curved, blind curves and parking on both sides right now. So we're going to prohibit parking there just to proactively prevent any accidents. On Red Arrow Trail, there's a segment that should be signed no parking to allow for Metro Transit buses to access the bus stop pad. On Radicchio Drive and Mizuna out in Terra Vesa, the southwest sides of both streets should be signed no parking from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days to ease congestion. And then the second component of this ordinance is that we're going to put an ordinance in that says you're not allowed to park in bicycle lanes anywhere in the city. So the specific language that was in the ordinance, let me see if I can find it quickly here. Okay, so it says, Section 2, no person shall stop, stand, or park any vehicle in any clearly and appropriately marked bicycle lane. And the amendment by TTC was to remove clearly and appropriately so that it just says you can't stop, stand, or park any vehicle in a marked bicycle lane. Because otherwise somebody could say, well, this section wasn't clearly and appropriately marked. It was merely marked.
I'll move to amend the resolution as outlined by TTC.
Second.
Okay, and discussion? I don't know, Tim, do you want to add anything else?
I think Alder Jetzer described it perfectly.
All right, I'm done for the day.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question about no parking in any bike lanes.
Correct.
So how many? Do you know the percentage of road here that they have bike lanes?
Not off the top of my head. Specifically, where this came up was the Limerick. We had issues where visitors would come, pull up, and park in the bike lane along Lacey Road, and then just walk into the apartment to visit while leaving their car in the bicycle lane. So this would allow us to install signs kind of in front of like an apartment building or where areas we're seeing people just, kind of park a car for the short term to go visit someone. And this would allow us to put up no parking signs to try to avoid this from happening.
Okay. Oh, I get it. Okay. Yes, I know what you're trying to do now. Okay.
Yeah, and the wording doesn't require a sign to be there. This is just an ordinance that says you're not allowed to. So even if there's no sign, you're not allowed to. And I guess just as a general rule, parking in a travel lane doesn't seem like a good idea.
Okay, Shannon.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, I know it's going to be an ordinance, but I think we should put some sort of sign up, because what happens if somebody comes from Madison and they don't have that ordinance? A nice warning would be, because I can see it. Well, I didn't see the sign. How was I supposed to know? I don't live in Fitchburg. Or somebody in Fitchburg, well, I didn't know that was an ordinance. When did that happen? So I just think maybe we should, if we're going to do that, we should have some signs.
Okay, good point. Jim?
Besides the signs, will there be something in the street? Like some bike lanes that have bike right there along with signs. I kind of agree with Shannon. I mean, if you're just going to put a sign in front of an apartment building, what about the rest of the bike lane?
It says you can't stop, stand, or park in a marked bike lane.
But how will people know? I mean,
well, because it's marked. I mean, there'll be, the painted line that divides the car lane from the bike lane, and most likely there'll be a stencil every so often.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be marked.
Marked.
And the plan is, Tim, you can correct me, and Ross, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the plan is to get signs out there. It's just that we want the ordinance on the books, which will allow us over time to put up the signs as budget and staff considerations allow.
Ross, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say in response to Alder Strassman's comment, this is part of Wisconsin state law that you can't stop, stand, or park a motor vehicle in a bicycle lane. So this is the law all over Wisconsin, and this is just to help our police department be able to effectively enforce it.
Okay, so this is a learning moment for all of us.
Ross, could you email the council the particular statute?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to do this. So now I need to. So any other question about this? So now we're voting on the ordinance with the amendment made in TTC. Or
Yeah, we're voting on the amendment first.
yeah, the amendment. Yes. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. So now we are.
I did want to say one more thing.
Oh yes.
So we talked about the bike lanes, but there is a couple other like no parking limits in this ordinance update, and I just want to say one of them is on Chapel Valley Road. Thank you. And this has been a concern for residents. It's right there's a lot of seniors that cross the street there to get to the park, and it's that blind curve. It's really, really dangerous, and so they've been asking for eliminating parking on the curve on both sides for a long time. So thank you to the public works staff for doing this. I think it'll really improve safety in that intersection.
Okay. So now I need a motion to approve the amended resolution, isn't it?
No, we just need to vote on the ordinance as amended.
Or the ordinance as amended. Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ordinance carries. So, okay. So it's approved. Thank you. What is next?
I will move approval of Resolution R-19723, approving the amended traffic management process.
Second.
This was approved by the Board of Public Works with amendments, and it was also approved by TTC with amendments.
Nice.
TTC amendments were a subset of Public Works amendments, so don't fret.
So how you're going to present that to us?
Yeah, they are listed here.
But you're going to introduce this as the resolution coming with the amendment from the both bodies, or only one, or?
Use word about Public Works, I think, for simplicity.
Okay.
And who's going to approve? Gabriela, you're going to talk about TTC?
I think they'll talk about
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
just clarify.
So.
All right.
yeah,
So I will move approval of Resolution R-19723 as amended by the Board of Public Works.
And second.
Okay. So now, can you what? So we're going to do it. Sorry. I forgot. So we have a couple of residents wishes to speak about this topic. So first we are going to go with Sue Easterday. So you have, for all the speaker, 3 minutes. Okay? So.
Very good. Thanks. I won't take nearly that much, really mostly to thank the staff and alders. We've interacted with many several times, and a lot of good has come from the work that they've done with us. And it's our wish that at the end of the process, the council will see that we have a neighborhood-friendly ordinance in place to manage traffic concerns. And I'll be here to answer other questions, and I'll just hand off to Jay at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, Jay, you're next.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to make some remarks tonight. And I'd like to echo what Sue also said. We've been very impressed with the process that this is followed to get to this point. The staff and a number of alders have really been very helpful and very good listeners. And so based upon what the motion is before you, we would only ask you to consider one other amendment to the motion. And it is in item 3D of the remarks that we prepared for you for tonight. I think you have a copy of that. And basically, we would think it would be appropriate to add a sentence that says that if the Traffic Calming Committee unanimously approves a plan that's different than the plan approved by the city engineer, both plans will be submitted to the Board of Public Works and the Transportation and Transit Commission. And so that is the only other thing that we hope you would consider adding. And again, we're very satisfied with what we have here. It's a very good process. The enhancements and the amendments that have been proposed by staff make a lot of good sense. It's going to allow for a lot more projects to be implemented in the city to reduce traffic speeds. And so we're very thankful for how we got here. And we hope you consider the one other amendment we've offered. And thank you.
Okay. So Bill, can you go through the amendments in Public Works, so and TTC? No, where are you? Public Works? So can you share with us what are those so we are all in the same page?
Yeah, so I guess first of all, I'll just say, and I'll let Ross expand on this later, but I hope everybody has had a chance to read through his annotated documentation here with the red line version showing you the 11 major changes to the base process. And then after meeting with Sue and Jay, Ross had subsequently sent out a memo, I believe that was on December 12th. Boy, I gotta try and find it in here. And Ross, feel free to chime in if you have that at your fingertips.
It was December 12th was the date of that second memo.
I have a copy of the memo you want. Bill.
Okay.
It's on page 318 of the packet. I don't know if
I'm sorry, it's on page what?
318 of the packet.
318, okay, yeah, thank you. All right, so the staff memo prepared by Transportation Engineer Kaler includes 4 additional changes. So first, changing the community action request form to require signatures from 50% of households for single-family home areas or duplexes, and 30% of households, property owners, or business owners in all other areas. Second, adding the following language: examples of past projects and possible projects can be found on the City of Fitchburg website on the Traffic Management Process page. Thirdly, add the following language: no part of this document modifies R185-16, titled A Resolution Updating and Extending Resolution R7510, regarding the construction of new sidewalks and shared use paths in existing neighborhoods. And lastly, adding the following language: if one but not both of the Board of Public Works and the Transportation and Transit Commission approve a traffic calming plan, the traffic calming plan shall be submitted to the Common Council along with both bodies' recommendations for council consideration.
The BPW amendment is on the
Okay, so
317.
A separate amendment approved by the Board of Public Works, prompted, I believe, by Jay and Sue's comments, is to add a sentence after or in the 1212 memo that reads: examples of past projects and possible projects can be found on the City of Fitchburg website. And then possible projects include, but are not limited to, speed humps, speed tables, traffic circles, chicanes, chokers, medians, islands, pavement markings, sidewalks, and stop signs.
okay, so how we want to go? So can you also go through the amendments from TTC, or they are the similar?
The first 4
the first
were Ross's staff memo, and those were approved by both Public
for
Works
both.
and
the other
TTC.
thing that.
There was one additional for Public Works.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's not too complicated. Okay. So now is we open for discussion. Any comments? I don't know, Ross, do you want to add something about this?
I think Alder Jetzer went over all the amendments very succinctly. So happy to answer any questions on the amendments or the original changes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions and concerns. First of all, Ross, I want to say thank you very much for all the time that you put in this. My concern is that, some of the changing the parameter, we are going to open this to more roads that they are going to qualify for some sort of management traffic calming process. And the other one is my concern is like the high expectation of residents that they would say, oh, my road qualify now because we reduce the parameter, and now the expectation that the city needs to do something and we need to allocate more money for this traffic calming process. I don't know. I think I will feel more comfortable if there is some sort of another requirement here that some of the roads that we are going to decrease, some of these parameters are like roads that they are wide. They are not that, wider than. I will feel more comfortable because we are reducing the amount of road that are going to be, we are going to be able to qualify if we approve this. And I don't feel comfortable, to be honest, with this resolution, because I don't think also, like, it's great that we add some of the, what are the traffic calming that, we add what are those, we are, adding that language. But I am very concerned about the cost of approving this resolution and the expectation. So, I don't know. This is my concern. I don't know, Rosie, you can, we already talked about this, but, I feel very concerned about this.
Yeah, I think those are all very valid concerns. My kind of intention behind these changes is that this program would be limited by the funding available instead of by basically speed constraints that I feel are too high to have an impact on traffic safety in Fitchburg. So my hope is that by reducing the speeds that the road needs to hit to qualify for this process, we can actually spend some of the money that's been allocated to traffic calming, and then going forward, our traffic calming projects would be limited by the funding available, and that could be set by council, obviously, as part of the CIP or the budget.
But usually, I agree, I agree and disagree with your comment because most of the money that we are allocated for this type of project is not like huge amount of money, okay? So, and the expectation is that we have like, for example, the Osmussen road that we need to put some sort of calming, okay? So this is a very long road, and it doesn't matter if we, if we install speed bump or any sort of, medians or whatever it is. Maybe that road is going to take the entire budget that we have, or even more money, So, so that one is. This one is about, yes, we are going to use according to the money allocated to the CIP. But what happens if we have like a list of 50 roads that we can now qualify, and people have the expectation that we are going to fix that, And then we're going to say, you know what, we're going to fix that whenever we have the money, maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we are creating that sort of expectation that this is my concern on how much of your time you're going to spend doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that expectation is a very fair concern to have. The projects would be ranked if we had, say, 10 of them that came in. The projects would be ranked with the score sheet that's part of the traffic management process. And the projects that score the highest would be done first, as we have the money to do them. But you're right that some roads would probably qualify to be done using this process, and we just wouldn't have the money to do them that year, or maybe the next year or the year after either. And for projects, for roads like Osmondson that are really long and would take up all of the budget to do the whole road, those could be broken up into smaller chunks based on probably the same scoring system where we would rate just different sections of the road as different projects, if that's the only way to go about using this process for those roads.
Any other questions, comments? Bill?
Yeah, so Ross, let's say that we pass this and then you're suddenly flooded with applications. Do you have a plan for dealing with, getting inundated with applications? I don't know how many you normally get in a given time period, and if there's any way you can estimate how many you're gonna.
In the year that I've been with the city, I've received 4 community action request forms, which is the first step in this process. You have to get signatures of 50% of the people in your neighborhood that are affected by the traffic issue. And I have received, I don't have a count of how many traffic complaints I've received, but when I get a call, I tell them that they need to fill out a community action request form and everything that entails. Usually the community action request form is enough of a barrier to weed out requests that are maybe not serious. And in the year that I've been with the city, I've gotten 4 completed community action request forms, 3 of which would be eligible for this process after these changes are made.
Okay, I have another question. Okay, Gabriel, and then before I forget me.
Yeah, well, I just do appreciate the concern about staff time, but I mean, from my understanding, my limited understanding of the Osmondson Road project is that it took a lot of staff time to be managing this issue that I think was very clearly a road that needs to be managed. We need to work on it potentially, but like the staff has spent a lot of time working with the neighborhood and not having any ability to even propose a solution. So I think that having a process that's more streamlined and that maybe qualifies roads that deserve some sort of consideration. But I like that the final word is still within the city engineer, so they can make the decision about whether or not it's justified. And I think maybe the answer is that there is nothing that we can do in the short term to justify it. Maybe we have to wait until the road is being rebuilt. But at least it gives us the ability to have that conversation and maybe add it to the CIP. And I always find that telling people that they have to wait on a solution is not as bad as just telling them that it's not even possible. So I think it's a good change, and I appreciate your concern, but I'm comfortable with the process.
Yes, I respect your position, but the other thing is, can we add something here that we can do this in collector roads or wider than 10 feet? Because we need to be honest here, and this is the people that they are speeding in this area are the neighbors, okay? So it's because in most of these roads, they are not collector roads, they are no, and then the other thing is, we are moving the problem from one road to another one. Because suppose that we say we are going to put a speed bump in all Osmusden. You know what people are going to do? I'm going to drive through Richardson, speeding through Richardson. So my concern here is like, yeah, we're trying to solve a problem, and the problem is people are speeding. People in some of these roads, like Osmusden, Pembroke, Richardson, we don't have sidewalks where people can feel safe walking on the sidewalk. I live in a road where I don't have sidewalk, okay? And I walk the city the whole summer, so I know what I know when people speed. I am also consider myself sometimes I speed, but so this will say the question here is that the people that are speeding are the same people living in those areas. So, and my other concern is we are gonna open the gate for roads that they don't qualify now, and road they don't maybe need to have a calming traffic measurement to qualify. And this is my concern. Okay, that's it. Okay, Randy.
Mayor, I didn't use all my time.
No, we had a discussion at council. Sorry, Jay. Randy.
Okay, I just thought I'd check. Thank you.
Under the current plan, though, it doesn't seem like anything qualifies, and safety is a concern of mine. I mean, so when does that come into play? I mean, Osmondson's been going on for 30 years, and it's only because it doesn't qualify. And we can discount anything we want, but we should have a plan. We are a city that's growing. Maybe we need to allocate additional funds. Ross mentioned that there is a ranking, a scoring, and if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. We can't just ignore this. We could all come up with all kinds of answers of why, and I get it, but we do owe our residents some amount of responsibility, that we're taking responsibility for their safety. So those are my comments. I think we need to move this project forward. Otherwise, let's just take it off the table. We won't have anything.
Gabriela and then Joe.
I think I understand what you mean, because I think we default to thinking about speed bumps when we think about traffic calming, but I feel like I've learned more about it at TTC over time, and I'm thinking about recent things I've seen, like when the curb comes way out and creates a choke. I think it's called the choke point. I don't know. Maybe Ross can comment on that. But I see it on I think it's Nakoma Road. Anyway, it comes out and it makes you slow down, psychologically, because you see this jut out in the road, and so you just slow down because you obviously are not going to speed through a narrow part of the road. So there's stuff like that that's really based in psychology and how people drive. And so it's not the kind of thing where it's a speed hump and people are never going to drive on that road because it's a pain to do. It's a thing that psychologically makes people slow down without even realizing it. Because I think people often speed because they don't know that they're speeding. It just happens because they're on autopilot. And can't necessarily blame people because the roads are built they feel like you can go fast on them. So I just want to say, I agree in terms of the example of speed humps, that can be that could divert people to other roads. But I think there are other tools at our disposal now that cause people to slow down without making something like having people divert to a different road. So that's just one example that I can think of that I've seen recently that definitely jumps out to me as something that slows me down.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that too, just because I've gotten a lot of inquiries over the years about speed bumps, and it's been my default too. So that would be my question about what are the most, proven road design speed calming efforts by research. And then the other question I had is, I think I brought it up in other council meetings, but in terms of process for our traffic folks, are you satisfied with kind of the current process for requesting traffic calming devices and the public's way to do it? And is there a better way that we can do it that's more, I don't know the right word is equitable, but just kind of well thought out versus whoever asks first, and collects the signatures first gets it, if that makes sense. And I don't want to say that to disrespect any process or anything like that. It's more just an inquiry about like, how can we, is there any way our process can be improved?
I think there's always room for improvement, and one of the biggest issues with any of our city processes, from my perspective, is that they're only really available to the people who know about them, especially this one where you have to know to call City Hall or the transportation engineer, and then you have to go out and collect signatures. That's difficult for people to do, partly by design. One thing that could help improve this process is something that we've talked about in TTC. So Alder Jetzer and Alder Gerhardt are familiar with this, but the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which we're part of as part of the City of Madison metropolitan area, they're developing a high injury network map that basically shows all of our areas of highest concern safety-wise for traffic issues. That tool will be extremely helpful going forward to identify problem areas and hopefully address them with projects through our CIP process that won't have to have a resident complaint to kick them off. So that's something else that I'm planning on using when it's available.
Okay. No, Randy, I want to say I agree with you that safety is a priority. I know that we need to find a solution for Osmussen, Pembroke, and Richardson, because I have a lot of people complaining about Richardson Street too. My concern is like if we can, my concern is like all the time the rows, because a lot of people are going to qualify, but a lot of the question is, can we add something like a street that are wider than 10 feet? These are the street where people tend to speed more, are the one that they are going to have priorities for this. You know what I mean? I don't know. I am asking,
Well, but I believe Ross already stipulated that there is a ranking process, and that's part of his process. So I'm not sure where. I mean, if you want to change that process, I guess that's what or that part of the process. But to me, there's something already in play, or will be in play with this resolution.
No, I don't want to change the process. The process is fine. Is that in adding more like adding like only roads that they are 10 feet wide that are going to be the one that qualify for this process, we are, reducing the possibility that many regular roads qualify because people think that the people are speeding. We need to start all this process, wasting a lot of time from our traffic engineer and then we don't have the money to do it. You know what I mean? So that's it. This is my comment. I know that we have an issue in those 3 streets. 2 were in my district, and 2 in your district. That I know that people complain. But that's it. I understand the need. So I am not saying we shouldn't do anything. But I am concerned about the other stuff. That's it. Okay. Chad?
I'll just add, one, Ross, I do want to thank you for your time you put into this. Definitely appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate all the work that the committees and commissions have spent debating this, and obviously Sue and Jay, appreciate your comments as well from a residential perspective. And Mayor, your comments are certainly valid. I mean, I can understand and appreciate where you're coming from. And I think where we're at from a staff perspective is, we've heard from Osmundson neighborhood and others over the years about traffic safety concerns related to speeding, pedestrian safety. And under the existing process, there is nothing that staff can necessarily do to implement a long-term solution. Sure, we could send the police department over there to have visibility when available. We can put up electronic signboards to help educate motorists to their speed. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that is necessarily long-term and sustainable. So this was an opportunity for us to at least have a conversation to see if the existing process that we have is okay and that the council is comfortable with the existing process, or after further review by engineering and others, if perhaps a new process should be considered that at least puts some measure of structure in there. And again, I agree that there is a definite possibility that more streets than we've intended to take a look at could fall into this. And I think that may be, in some regards, maybe a better problem to have than no streets qualifying, because the alternative to not being able to address any of these through a traffic management process, as I see it, is that the council would need to direct staff through CIP projects or otherwise to say, study Osmondson Road and implement traffic calming solutions, and here's your budget of whatever, or come back to us and let us know what it's going to cost. And I think that actually could be a bit more problematic than having some sort of structure in place through this traffic management process to really do an assessment and have a consistent process in place versus just having the council, based upon resident feedback, direct traffic management process just simply through the CIP, if that makes sense. So there's no perfect solution by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm sure that as we get some experience, if the council ultimately approves this particular update or amendments to the TMP, that we may be back in a few years and saying we need to update it further. And nothing precludes us, through feedback from residents, alders, or staff to go ahead and propose further amendments down the road. So.
Okay, so, Jim.
So I'm just trying to think this through for the ranking. So wouldn't a ranking have to have a cost, something talking about cost? Because if you do Osmondson and the cost to actually put calming devices on that street, but you have another street that maybe it doesn't cost so much, but it ranks lower, then wouldn't we just then do that street? And that's what, I think that needs to be worked through.
As Rose said. I don't know.
He's like, what?
So one of the reasons that the score sheet does not include the cost of a project right now is because we can really only come up with that cost going through the entire traffic management process, having 3 or 5 meetings with the neighbors, doing all of the design work, which that's where the staff time component really comes in, is those meetings and the design. But that's really the only way to come up with the cost estimates that would be necessary to rank projects that way. So the score sheet right now, and with these amendments, basically just focuses on the current form of the road and the safety concerns that are present.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah, to this point, Jim, if you turn to page 339 and you read the second last paragraph, it says projects will be ranked citywide based on point score. The highest ranking projects will be undertaken first. The number of projects initiated each year will depend on city staff time and funding. And then specifically to your point, if the highest scoring project exceeds the available funding, the next ranked less expensive project will be considered.
Thank you, that helps.
Okay, so are you ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, so we are voting this with the 2 amendments, isn't it?
It was introduced as amended.
As amended by
Public Works, yep. So we're voting
Okay.
as introduced as
Okay.
amended by Board of Public
Okay, so now we are voting as amended by the Public Works. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And now we need to add.
It was
already introduced as amended.
Oh, okay. That's it. Okay. Okay.
Amazingly enough, we're still on Public Works.
Yes. Okay.
I will move approval of What?
Jay, I just wanted to mention your amendment to include that information in the process. That's all. Everything that the way the city usually does things is every time we go through a process, all of the documentation ends up at every committee. So if there's a different recommendation from city staff than the citizen committee, it's going to end up at TTC to deal with. It may not be in the actual resolution, but TTC will have the information.
Okay, so next. Bill.
I will move approval of Resolution R 217-23, approving change order number 2 for the 2022 South Saline Road Reconstruction Project.
Second.
Board of Public Works approved.
Okay, did Finance Committee approve?
Finance approved.
Okay, thank you. What is this, Bill?
All right, I'll just read some of the background information from the referral sheet. The city of Fitchburg reconstructed South Saline Road between Lacey and East Sherrill between 2022 and 2023. The existing water main at the intersection of East Sherrill Parkway and South Saline Road was installed shallower than shown on the construction plans. To reconstruct the road, the water main needed to be lowered through this intersection. There was rock below the water main that had to be removed to complete the work. Change order number 2 is for the costs to lower this main through the intersection. These costs were allocated to the contingency funds in the purchase order with Speedway Sand and Gravel under the TID. However, only a portion of this change order is covered by that TID. The remaining portion needs to be applied to the water fund. There are water funds available in the CIP for the reconstruction of South Saline Road to cover these additional costs. Tim, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
So how much money we're talking here? Where is that? Is that the end of the... Is $35,000 additional?
$75,000 is identified in the resolution in the last clause.
Okay, I missed. I think I passed that. 75. Oh. So who does the quality control? So how do we avoid that this thing will not happen again? You know.
Well, this happened.
So
go ahead, Tim.
What we're doing for phase 2 and phase 3 is we're having a surveyor actually go out and survey the valves that are existing right now to get the depth, so that those elevations will be put on the drawings versus going off the as-built drawing. So that'll ensure that what's actually constructed in the field will be what's utilized for the design.
And Tim, I just want to be certain that I'm clarifying this statement correctly, that the water main that had to be lowered was previously installed during the last reconstruction project, correct?
Correct. I don't believe it was during the last reconstruction project. It's just when the city had extended it out into that area of the city. So it was the existing water main. I believe it was done kind of around 2002, 2003 timeframe.
Okay. Any questions? No? All those in favor of the resolution R-217-23 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
All right, I will move approval of Resolution R 229-23, authorizing Dane County Services for stormwater permit review and erosion control inspection in 2024.
Second.
Did Public Work approve?
Yes.
RCC?
Yes.
And Finance?
Finance committee approved.
Okay, thank you. So what is this?
So the city contracts with Dane County Land, Water, Land and Water Resources for stormwater and erosion control, plan review, and construction site inspection. 2024 operating budget includes $35,000 for stormwater management and erosion control review and enforcement. I'm not sure whether that fully explains things or not. Tim, care to bail me out here?
Yeah. So this is a contract with Dane County Land and Water Conservation Resources. And basically, when a stormwater permit is submitted to the city, they'll help review that for us and then also do the construction inspection services. Most of this is for development work so that the city passes that cost on to the developer. So for instance, in 2023, we had $28,000 of expenses for these services from Dane County. And out of the $28,000, $25,000 was passed on to the developer. Only $3,000 was for city projects.
Okay, any questions? No? All those in favor of resolution R-229-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So next one.
I move approval of resolution R-239-23, accepting a public water main easement on Lot 2 of CSM 13691 in the first addition to Fitchburg Technology Campus. Public Works approved.
Plan Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and take this because we talked about it in plan. It's pretty simple. There's a new daycare going in this area, and the easement's needed to maintain water service. It's not something that's normally needed, but it is in this particular case.
Okay, any comments, question? Nope. Okay, all those in favor of resolution R-239-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So next we move to Park Commission. We don't have an update. Okay. Library Board?
Sorry.
Don't look at me.
Next meeting is January 17th
Okay, thank
at
you.
5:30.
Okay. Commission of Aging Well?
We're meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay. RCC?
We met on Monday and had quite an extensive meeting that I'll try to summarize briefly. Todd Bullenbach from Pelletieri came to talk about their drop-off site and talk about the issue that we have just so much cardboard going and it's clearly not coming from the city, all from the city of Fitchburg. And he talked about some potential options like, I mean, obviously you could remove the drop-off location completely. I don't think there's support for that, but you could create a permit system. You could reduce the hours, staff it all the time, a whole bunch of, or some combination of those. I think you should also just do a cost, but I personally think we should do a cost benefit analysis and just see how much it would cost to implement one of those solutions. And is it more than what it costs to just let other people use our facility? I don't know. Maybe it's a wash. So it's something we'll have to continue talking about. That being said, Ben did let us know that public works staff has some capacity right now, and so they're going to do some policing of the facility, and not like really like stringent, but they're going to go and find out where people are coming from and try to get some more data, some actual data about what's happening. So thanks to the public works staff that are making that happen, so we can get some more information. Then the bulk of the meeting was spent on the police building. We had a discussion about the sustainability features. It was a really great discussion, and I think this is an accurate summary of it. Basically, what the committee recommends is to put in geothermal, put in as much solar as is feasible by with the budget, and then also do as much with putting in electric vehicle infrastructure as possible. And that pretty much takes up the $2.5 million. Plus, you could spend additional if you wanted to do additional solar. Oh, and sorry, the one other thing is some passive elements. So like making sure that the building is well sealed, well insulated, so that you're not using as much energy to begin with. There were other things that we were looking at, like bioswales and green roofs, and we had a long discussion and just decided that those things are, while nice to have, they're not doing the core thing that sustainability's feature should do, which is reduce the energy use of the facility, reduce our impact to climate change, and then also save us operating costs, which is what those features specifically are going to do in the long term. And then I guess a couple of other things. The sustainability plan team met in December, and they're going to meet again this month. So that process is moving forward. Fitchburg is going to host the Green Tier Legacy Committee. And I'll talk about it in my Alder report, but there's some salt-wise info I can send out to the council, which is how to properly salt your driveways, because you don't need to use as much, and using too much can actually be very terrible for our waterways. So I'll talk a little bit about that in the Alder report. Thank you.
Thank you. TTC?
We will meet tomorrow evening to discuss the Fitchrona Road reconstruction, Rimrock Road resurfacing, and Vision Zero safety countermeasures.
Okay, thank you. Sida?
We have not met. We addressed this at the last council from our last meeting. So
Okay. Agricultural and rural affairs?
we had one item last week it was the Gorman property, which we've already voted on.
Okay, thank you. Bicycle committee?
Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 6th, 7:30 a.m. in the Jeannie Sealing Room.
Okay. EMS commission?
Our next meeting is January 18th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Healthy neighborhood committee?
Our committee spent a lot of time talking about the application. We did approve the application for programs for 2024, so that's currently on the city website for any nonprofits that are interested in applying to do some things to help us in these neighborhoods. The application deadline is February 9th.
Yeah, and also you guys received the link. If you can share with your list too. Okay. Thank you, Jay. Housing Advisory Committee?
We met in December, but we meet quarterly. Oh, wait, no, every 4 months. 3 months. Anyway, nothing to report.
Okay. Landmark Preservation Commission?
We have not met, nothing to report.
Okay, and Tree Advisory Committee?
We meet tomorrow at 4.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And next we move to the report from other commissions and committees, and we have a police facility oversight committee update and discussion tonight.
Yes,
What?
Well, I was going to say that the chief was here to give a presentation.
And I have I don't know, we keep this from, we have comment from people.
Do you want me to keep these for when we compile?
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, what about we're going to do the same with the video? We have 2 videos. So the video, we're going to show the video for the 12th. Yeah, we need to show all of that. We have 2 people with some videos. But we are going to show those videos at 12. Yeah. So we also received a couple of comments from neighbors. Those comments are gonna be made public on February 13 when we had the resolution on the table. And also we received 2 videos that we are gonna play on February 13. Okay? So we are gonna play in the 13 the videos, the 2. Okay? What happened? Yeah, but we are not. So if I do that, I need to open the gate for everything.
Correct. So, if you want to allow comment, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to allow comments, and then I'm going to allow the 2 videos to be played, okay? So let's do it before we go to the presentation, okay? Okay, so Jay Anderson, are you there?
I'm here. I was here to listen, but also just to comment that I'm in full support of the $50 million for the the new police station. And I said this the other evening at the meeting, so I don't need to repeat myself here.
Okay, thank you. And then I received a comment from Ari Lowe, 3059 Port Linton Lane, Fitchburg, and she registered in opposition of this. Police in Fitchburg need a new building, but the facility should not be fancier than the other city buildings, which are already fancier than our school. And it not should be cost so much money with so little public input. Okay. And then I have another one from Ann Sawyer. She also wishes to speak in opposition. She said, I acknowledge that the police need a new facility, but don't think they have paid enough attention to possible cost reduction strategies. The building should be less extravagant, reduce the size of the windows, since apparently they have to be bulletproof. Okay. Okay, so, and then we have 2 videos that we want to show. If we allow this, we need to allow the video. So, you can have this for you.
Nope.
No? Okay, we can start with the presentation and then.
What's this?
Shall we put those into the next meeting?
Okay, yes. Okay, so who's gonna go first?
I have an opening statement, and then we're gonna move forward. I'll explain. All right. Hello, alders, mayor, and city administrator. I want to start off by thanking you for your input and attendance in last week's information meetings. Most of you attended more than one meeting and engaged with us and the public during the presentation. You should know that meant a lot to us, as we feel the burden on a city project being placed on the shoulders of our understaffed police department. We understand you all have jobs and other obligations outside your role as alders for the city of Fitchburg. However, you should also know that our command staff has been working double shifts managing our obligations to the police department and the building process. Your actions last week displayed that we are in this together, and this was very refreshing to us. However, I'd like to share with you the challenges the Fitchburg Police Department has experienced and how continued community engagement will have to slow down. We are planning on having 2 more public meetings, but we'll have to scale it down extensively after that. We entered into 2023. When we entered 2023, the Fitchburg Police Department took on challenges of the police facility, starting with 11 sworn vacancies, and delegating this down was not an option. The command staff had no other choice but to embrace the extra responsibility. We started 2023 with monthly neighborhood meetings, connecting with every section of the city and informed the residents on the challenges of the Fitchburg Police Department. We work with the various levels of expertise from city engineering to running requests for proposals, processes to retain an FGM at Pepper's Construction. We became engulfed with the weekly planning and design meetings that required input from many lenses. Meetings with Ad Hoc Committee, RCC, Public Works, Finance, Planning Committee, and the Fitchburg Committees, Fitchburg Center Committee. I'm proud to say that the Fitchburg Police Department managed to adapt and overcome the demand of the challenges placed on our department with the hope that 2024 would reap some benefits. This year, we are still playing catch-up from last year and have taken on additional challenges that are unexpectedly placed on us. We lost 3 officers in 3 weeks, 2 retirements and 1 resignation that occurred this morning. We have a budgeted staffing of 55 sworn and are down 7 vacancies, all patrol positions. On top of the 7 vacancies, 5 officers are on field training, which means they cannot work on the streets by themselves. They're still in training. We have 3 additional officers that are at the training academy and 3 officers on limited duty or family leave, and an additional detective on family leave. All this leaves us with 19 unfilled positions, a 34% deficiency. This makes it very difficult to delegate that task, as I mentioned earlier, down to the department, which means we have a command staff of 4 that still need to steer the ship and provide leadership to a young department that's getting younger and younger and younger. Less than 3 years experience if you call for the police after dark. We'll focus hard on our vacancies and prefer full staffing with no salary savings than to burn our officers out. We've already did it in 2023. We don't want this to be a less desirable place to work. We'll continue to work with you, the team you see, and the team you see here, and the city leadership to get this project going, but no, it's going to be difficult to accomplish some of the demands that were placed upon us. Today, what we hope to accomplish is recap some of the main themes that we've noticed in our public meetings and answer some of the emails that you've sent to us with questions that I'm told have not yet, answers have not been received. After we answer these questions, and if you still have more, please ask us today, as you have various levels of expertise, from engineering to design to construction and law enforcement. What I'm getting at is we really want you to give us the questions so that we can air them. Some of these have been asked and answered, and maybe we didn't answer them appropriately or it wasn't comprehended. The decisions that you make are very important, and we really want to make sure that you're informed. So what we're going to get started with is the themes that have come up in our meeting, and Ned's going to present that, and then we're going to go through the questions that I'm told have not been answered so that we can start with that and then move on with some other information we'd like to provide you.
Thank you, Chief. As the Chief mentioned, we appreciate your assistance in getting the word out in rather short order around the holidays. We were pleased with the turnout that we had. Obviously, we would like to fill every single room that we can, but based on prior meetings, it was nice to see the residents and elected officials and others that did turn out. I just wanted to share a couple statistics here in the sense that we tried our best to get the information out through social media, and we all know how that can be impacted. But looking at the numbers and the metrics involved here, we're reaching a good chunk of our citizens online, particularly through Nextdoor, because those are vetted Fitchburg residents. And so we're across the spectrum in advertising these events, we're reaching a good chunk of our population, and there was quite a bit of an engagement. So the 1,300 plus engagements are individuals who are actually looking at some of the material and going on to the webpage to learn more about the project. One of the key and continual questions coming up through our interactions and at these meetings really revolves around the training components of the facility. And we just want to emphasize again, as the Chief mentioned here, our average experience is decreasing on a frequent basis here, looking at an officer who has an average experience level across all 3 shifts of 4 years. Again, if you go and call the police right now, you're going to get an officer that has less than 3 years of experience on average. And so for me, this is a fundamental point of the importance of training. And in looking at the components, the training components that are included, I think we wanted to kind of share this as a different way of explaining what we're trying to accomplish here, and that we have this triangle that's really necessary to accomplish our training tasks. And that covers our theory, which is the why of what we're doing. And that is going to be primarily accomplished through our multi-purpose training space and community room space. Moving into the technique, being the how and the actual, the physical movements necessary to accomplish a particular technique. Those can be accomplished in the DAT room, the Defense and Arrest Tactics room, or the multi-purpose training bay. And then moving into the application, which is what I've compared in our community meetings to being a game without an opponent or practicing with pads, so to speak, is the ability to apply the how and the why, and then really into the when. So we're getting into the decision making, the critical decision making that our officers are making on a regular basis, daily, multiple times a day. And again, revisiting the concept that we have inexperienced officers who are doing their best in very challenging circumstances, but really need to build competence and confidence in all of these skills. And so that space allows them to accomplish that in a safe and controlled environment where they can receive immediate feedback. We've touched on this a little bit. A couple of roots of our design and our programming here are the 21st Century Report on Policing and the Dane County United Way Special Task Force on Use of Force was a collaborative effort several years ago. And I'm not going to read the entire excerpt here from the report, but essentially a major component of both of those reports is training. And it specifically identifies the need to regularly train officers on important concepts. And we think that not only does this multi-purpose training bay accomplish that, but the community room allows us to have outside community groups come in and train more frequently than we're able to under our current training schedule. Accompanying the training discussion and the training component discussion are looking at cost estimates related to specifically the tactical training bay. And so we've done our best to come up with estimates related to both cost and revenue. And again, these are rough estimates, but we believe they reflect the potential for the number of sworn law enforcement officers in the area and the potential for Madison College. And then our operating and maintenance costs, again, are estimates. And so we're looking at costs around $50,000 a year with potential revenue around $60,000 a year. We can't emphasize enough, the facility is set up to maximize efficiency. It's purpose-built. There are many interconnected components. It's a team effort. There are many people in our department that play a number of different roles. You see police officers in uniform most frequently, but behind the scenes we have a number of different components there. And the other component being a purpose-built facility is the future growth and flexibility as we talk about growth of our community. And so looking at really the impact of this project, and we talked to community members and others who have provided feedback here, we're really looking at this facility to increase efficiencies and flexibility for future growth. And you can see the downstream effects of those efficiencies and flexibility that this facility allows for us to improve. And with that, our service improves. We are a service organization. We are here to serve the community each and every day. And we are confident that this facility will help us with both the efficiency and flexibility of our operations to improve the quality of our service and talking about improving our people, improving the competency, proficiency, and being able to develop them. We're also looking at being prepared and risk management here. And then I think it really speaks to the unique features of this department are reflective of the unique features and needs of our community. And so we're talking about culture. Culture is not the same at every police department. We're proud of our culture and we want to work on improving it to really reflect our community. And then we run through a few more things that are impacted here. There's a heavy focus, and rightly so, on officer wellness. There's plenty of space in this facility for that to occur. From our fitness space to our wellness rooms and break spaces, moving through recruitment and retention, and all of these things are related. And then I think one thing that we haven't really explained to a high degree in some of our community engagement is, in fact, community engagement and the ability for us to be more accessible, not only in our day-to-day operations, but also in our training, and to really engage and connect with our community to be more accessible and accountable. And then ultimately, we want a safe facility for everyone involved. And all of these things we think tie together to give us a product and a department that we can all be proud of. So with that, I think we'll go through our questions.
Okay. We drafted all the questions that all come from you, council, and mayor, with the exception of one email that came from a resident. So we'll start with the one that came from a resident and then move on to the ones that came from you all, alders and mayor. I'll start off with the first question. Can we reduce square footage and keep the administration in City Hall space? Obviously, I'll answer part of that, and Andrew Mayo will talk about square footage and length. But you can't split up the administration and in the body of the law enforcement agency for two reasons. We have to be there to manage and do the oversight, number one. And number two is City Hall space needs to be utilized by City Hall, which is the purpose of this whole city project, is to get the police out of City Hall so that we can use this space for others. So just wanted to answer that piece. And as far as square footage?
Yeah, so as far as the question on square footage, and there's some varying questions further on down the line having to do with reduction in square footage. What does that mean? How can we accomplish that? So really, we took it through our lens of our public safety expertise when it comes to designing these facilities. And right at the outset of the project, setting aside the 2015 study, we took a fresh lens and sat down with various members of the police department over the course of 2 days and did pretty extensive interviews into how they're operating, what sort of spaces they're using, what sort of spaces they're seeing lacking, and then even getting down into what types of furniture we'll potentially see in that new space as we get through the design. So all of that is to say that the 74,500 square feet that we've got in the design right now, all of that space has a purpose. Some of it serves multiple purposes, but there's really no wasted space in that. And I think it goes to say that the 2015 study came in just over 78,000 square feet. So having a fresh set of eyes looking at this problem of lack of space for the police department now, and then coming in just under 75,000 square feet, I think that kind of speaks to the fact that you had two different professional organizations that the city's hired coming up with very similar conclusions. So it really speaks to the fact that this is a need. If you're reducing the square footage, that's absolutely something we can design to. But it just puts you in the same boat that you're in now, which is building a facility and then before it's even paid off, looking at a larger facility because you've run out of room.
Okay. Next question. The next 6 questions come from Alder Jetzer. We're going to break it down. If you want to interact, if we didn't answer it, Alder Jetzer, please let us know. We did go in some length in trying to answer them as best as we can. First one is there more refined estimates for the construction of the training bay? There were some numbers that you gave out there, so I think, were you going to do it? Sure.
So initially, when we did our SD level estimate, we did not break out the training bay specifically. Just when we go through the job at the first time, we look at it as one big project. With the conversation around the training bay, we did go back and break out costs for that. The fit out of the equipment within the bay is about $1.9 million, with the shell and core of that space being about $2 million. So $3.9 million is the number that we came up with for the breakout for the training bay specifically.
Can I ask a question? When you mention equipment, what type of equipment is? The ventilation system?
Well, ventilation would be
Okay.
part of that. The trap for the bullets.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole slew of.
Okay.
So when it comes to the range equipment, it's not only the bullet trap, but also all of the armored plate paneling that keeps the bullets in that space so that you're not having any stray bullets running outside of your building. Also, all of the training equipment, all of the stationary targets, as well as, like you said earlier, the HVAC equipment. So really everything you need to outfit that space once the physical structure of it is built.
So I know there have been discussions in some of the community meetings about like training bay with or without a shooting range. Is there a cost difference that you have on hand for what it would cost without a shooting range?
So that would be the $2 million shell number, right? That's going to give you that physical space that can be used for training, just not obviously shooting.
Moving on to the next question, also by Alder Jetzer. What is the projected annual operating cost for a training bay?
That was the number.
That was the number on the slide. Just to recap, did you have any other questions on that piece with the slide, sir?
So can you explain, because I asked you a question yesterday, too, so what does it include that, the cost, is that, I know that when you have a shooting range, you had to do some, with the ventilation system, you need to have like what is maintenance, I don't know, all of that. I assuming that one is kind of like one of the biggest costs.
Yes, we can all do it, but Andrew, why don't you start off and we can talk about.
So some of the operating costs obviously is same as any other building. You've got your HVAC costs and things like that. But then unique to a firing range, you're going to have your lead abatement as well as
your what?
Lead abatement.
What is that?
That means taking care of all of the lead that ends up in the bullet trap from the physical bullets.
Oh, okay.
You have to have a specialty company come in and take care of that because there's an environmental consideration there. The other piece that's unique to a firing range would be the increased filtration that's part of the ventilation system. So you have specialty HEPA filters that have to be changed more frequently just because of the contaminants that wind up in those filters.
And in that slide that was shown to you, it shows up to approximately about $50,000 in operational costs, but we're looking at about $60,000 in revenue. So there is a plus. And you really don't know the operational costs because this is an area that, being it's underground, you completely shut everything down and you only have it on. The ventilation system is only on when you're using it. The lighting is only on when you're using it. It legitimately is concrete and metal. So the cleaning portion, a lot of that is you're not wiping down or cleaning things. You're basically, the way ranges work is you clean up after you use it. So every group that uses it has to sweep up all the casings and clean up for your leave. That's standard for anybody who's using a range, even in some of the private ranges. That's what you do. So the operational cost will determine how much you're using it. And if we are using this quite frequently, they can go up to approximately $50,000. They can go to as little as $10,000. So that number will also correspond with however many people we have, departments we have using it.
Yeah, I have another question that I asked a couple of months ago. Is how much the insurance cost for this facility increase when you have a shooting range? You know, if there is a differential or not?
Every law enforcement agency is insured. So when we go to, let's just say we're using Madison Range, and an accident were to happen, accidents do happen, and sometimes there's accidental discharges and an officer gets hurt, we would go to our own insurance. So if I'm in Dane County Sheriff's and I accidentally injure myself, my workman's comp and those insurance costs comes through CIVMIC because that's who city of Fitchburg uses. So whoever that city is insured through, that municipality, that's where any insurance type claims would go through.
No, I get that part.
So we wouldn't have any extra insurance.
My question is, like, I imagine that, you know, you have a facility with, you know, that you have a component that it could be very dangerous, you know what I mean? So if the insurance for the property of the, you know, is different, you know, when you have a shooting range or without a shooting range. I imagine that there is some, you know, they add the cost. I imagine that, isn't it?
I think it's a question you have to ask Sydney. What you're asking is there an additional
Yeah.
cost to the
Yeah.
city to buy insurance for the police facility by having a range in there?
Yeah, exactly.
We'd have to ask Sydney that question. I don't have any answer
Can
to
you
that.
ask that question by next week?
We can follow up, but
Okay.
as far as extra insurance for anybody, it would be an insurance issue if we open it up to private.
No, I know, I understand that part.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
like only cost, yeah.
No, I get that part, but I am getting the, you know, because this is a question that I had and I asked a couple of months ago, and also some, you know, people are asking those questions. If the insurance, because insurance is a very big, you know, component in you know, an expenditure, but it's going to be an additional, you know, cost because we have that training bay.
Okay. I will follow up with CIVMIC on that one. Okay. Okay, the next question. Annual report shows no firearm, the prior annual report showed no firearm use of force incidents. So why are we investing, in short, why are we investing in a range that will cost taxpayers money? And that was...
I think we've covered that, unless you want further explanation on that, Alder Jetzer, as far as the benefits of that training capacity there.
Well, I do want to make sure that the actual dollar amount is you know, mentioned there. I mean, this is, if it's a, you know, $4 million facility over 20 years at 3%, that's going to be in the neighborhood of $250,000 a year. Additional expense for the taxpayers. And that seems like a lot, given that we don't have a lot of use of force. You know, there's not a lot of events that where an officer would need to draw a weapon or anything.
You can add on to the discussion that we've had in that we do draw our weapons on a regular basis, and I would offer that it's through the training that we have and the training that we continue to have that we have not resulted in those incidents. And I think that I discussed in the, I believe it was on the 6th, on the Saturday meeting, the price that municipalities are exposed to, the exposure that they have when there is a use of force incident. The $250,000 or any total amount of the range would pale in comparison to those payouts for those incidents. So I don't know that there's a way to equate our previous use of force statistics to the cost of this component of the building.
In additional data, I mean, these are long after action reports. but you can look at Oakland's consent decree, Seattle's consent decree, LA's consent decree, there's New Orleans consent decree. In reading those, one of the common denominators is training and supervision and management. And those are the three things that we want to ensure are happening here. Again, I will reiterate that Fitchburg was the fastest growing city in 2023. Dane County is the fastest growing county. There's two cities, the big cities, Madison, you got big department, Dane County Sheriffs. But after the city of Madison, it's Fitchburg and Sun Prairie. We have to start taking the ownership that we are that fastly growing city, and we can't rely on other agencies to train our growing department. And these are one of the reasons why we keep pushing this training component.
Can I follow up with that?
Yes.
I hear you, but my concerns is that I guess two things. One, the cities that you've mentioned are much larger cities with much higher rates of violence and crime. And I know I saw in the presentation on Saturday kind of a really obscene lawsuit, but I guess my question is when we're looking at the investment in training compared to the frequency of incidents, especially like lawsuits this large, I'm wondering how frequently these large lawsuits or these incidents happen to the extent that, we're looking at a city that's 34,000 people, and I know it's going to grow, but also with a very low rate of crime compared to, a lot of cities that are of similar size and also that we're in Dane County. I mean, I know you acknowledged that in the beginning of most of your presentations, but that's just my concern here is like we can have large incidents, but at the same time, like looking proportionally and looking at kind of broadly at the data versus, really scary and meaningful and impactful incidents. I'm just wondering if it matches up. And I don't know if I'm being clear in like the way I'm communicating this, but that's, we're not New Orleans, we're not Milwaukee, we're not I'm from there and you are too, right. But that's my only concern with, kind of using large scale, high profile, extreme incidents to state the case.
And maybe I said indirectly, but what I'm getting at is when there is a lawsuit, whether it's a consent decree or not, the findings will often show, if not all the time show, supervision and training. That's what I'm getting at. That is always a component after the lawsuit, no matter how big or how small. Those articles you can pull off online, which is why I indicated those cities. Those are major cities that I indicated, but it's easy to also find the literature and read where what went wrong and what were the after action. That's why I bring them up. But in a municipality like this, you indicated nobody's saying that the county of Dane or the city of Fitchburg is high in crime. But at the same time, it's growing. And things are going to happen. We have to start thinking like a city. We are not a village where we think these things are not going to happen. We are growing at a pace where things are going to happen. We do have guns that are discharged in our city. We do have people that get shot. And I can tell you right now with the staffing levels, every time that happens so far, correct me wrong, Matt or Ned, we have to ask for mutual aid. And one of the most important pieces in investigations is the initial crime scene. You have a tavern shooting, there is no way we have the capacity to secure that crime scene appropriately. In fact, it's dangerous. And the other piece is, with as young as our department is, they're not prepared to handle a chaotic situation. We need to train them on that. So we're young and we're getting younger. And it's becoming very important that we pay attention and set them up for success versus failure. But again, nobody here will disagree with you that Fitchburg is a safe place.
I would also add real quick, too, that unfortunately you can't predict where these incidents are going to happen. And Brooklyn Center is a city, I believe, smaller than the city of Fitchburg, that any one of those incidents has the potential. And so, I've tried my best to come up with different comparisons. And I think recently there's been a lot of attention on airline safety. and safety and regulations there and things like that. And, while airline travel is relatively safe, and there are very few incidents, there have been some notable things that have gone wrong because of checks and balances and procedures and things like that, that there's still an investment in safety and procedures and staffing and training. And so I certainly understand the question, and things are proportional to a larger city, but we can't predict that. I think there is data that's out there that does indicate that use of force incidents tends to be higher when there are fewer officers on scene. And so when we have one or two officers responding to a volatile incident, I think statistically speaking, there could be evidence out there to indicate that use of force incidents could be higher. And as the chief mentioned, and I've mentioned in public presentations, there's no need to unnecessarily scare or frighten people, but there obviously are violent incidents, there are encounters that are occurring, and sometimes it's not even those incidents that occur, it's other run-of-the-mill calls for service where those things can quickly escalate. And so what we're talking about with the training component is not only preparing for those extreme incidents, but what I think we've talked about too is sending an officer into that training environment where they have the ability to use all of their tools, and then they end up using their most common tool, which is their ability to communicate. And they are not primed that every scenario that they're going to go into is going to be a deadly use of force scenario. And so they're improving their ability to provide service, whether it's a high-risk call or a low-risk call where we are providing most of our service.
The hardest thing to train, and we focus on the range, but the hardest thing to train is the ability to communicate and de-escalate. I call it crisis negotiations, and that is the hardest thing. You don't learn it overnight. It's actually an art, the ability to communicate and get the other person to do what you to comply or have them do what you need them to do without hands-on, and you don't learn that overnight. When you get to my age in law enforcement, it's how do you get the brain of a 25-year veteran into the head of a 21-year-old police officer? And that's what you're trying to accomplish in training.
Over the times we've spoken, you've made really compelling arguments for the training and provided some compelling anecdotes. That being said, I assume that there's a lot of research and reports and stuff that back this up. I'm really interested in having some access to some of those, if you have recommendations about things we can read, because while I appreciate the argument and it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it makes sense to a lot of residents, there are other residents that have valid concerns about policing that probably has nothing to do with Fitchburg Police Department specifically, but they have concerns. And so when I hear those questions, I've heard your answers, but I feel like I'd like some more data. And I know that you can't answer that question necessarily on the spot, but some metrics to back that up. And obviously training for sure, like no doubt is essential. And you have multiple training facilities, training opportunities within this facility, right? We have the DAT room, is that how you say it? And we have the actual conference room. But I think the one that people have questions about is the tactical training bay. So that specific type of training and the connection of that type of training to a reduction in use of force incidents is kind of the real thing that I'm interested in learning more about. I hope that makes sense. And I know you can't necessarily answer that question unless you have a specific report you can tell me.
Can I just say, and also not anecdotally, and no disrespect, like I understand the stories, and I understand the illustrations and the experiences, and I'm not in this profession to be able to speak to that. However, anecdotes are good, but also like the broad data, I think, is what I'm hearing Gabriella speak to him, and it's something that I've been asked as well.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to the next question? Yes.
Chief, I'll make a recommendation that you probably should check with the Madison Police Department. We had like 4 shootings, and the payout was in the millions for those shootings. So you may want to just contact them.
Yes, you can pull up a number of different incidents and show the results, and that's what I'm getting at. They're endless. You don't have to go far. We can go to Madison, but again, if we want to go with cities or smaller cities, we can also look at that. The easy data is the bigger cities, but it's still the same result. It comes back to training and supervision.
Yeah. Well, I was just with Joe's question,
Yes.
you know, something a little bit closer to home, you know, and maybe we could get that information for us.
To that end, I would also offer then that if we're going to talk about the uniqueness of what goes on in our community and comparing data from other departments, there are things that we have to take into account there as far as the backgrounds of the predominant backgrounds of employees of those agencies where they're doing those studies and things like that. And I had a conversation with Alder Jetzer regarding the culture of our police department and the training that we have and the ability for this facility to directly influence that training. Right now, we are really locked into a very tight timeline and schedule and limited in the types of training and the way in which we can train and the frequency that we can train. Whereas we can, with this immediate access and control and influence over this facility, we have the ability to craft a training program that is more meaningful and impactful for our community that meets our expectations. So I don't know, while we can certainly find studies and information related to overall training, it's very hard without direct comparison to what's going on in our community and what our community expects us and is going to support us in to have an apples to apples comparison. But there is data out there, and we can provide that for you.
I would also encourage the council, if you are looking for some data shortly after this meeting, to refer to the email that you've all received from Elizabeth Thompson, which she does provide statistical data reports on police use of force and scenario-based training. So I'd encourage you guys to read that if you haven't done so.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say you get your facility exactly as it is, and so you move in and you implement your training programs and everything. Give us ballpark figures here. How much time is spent on every type of training, from like you say, communication and crisis management to extremely high stress incidents where you must use deadly force? What's that breakdown?
In communication alone, to be a certified crisis negotiator, and again, I want to expand it to help you in communication skills, but to stay certified, you need 40 hours a year just to maintain that certification on crisis negotiations. So now you have those 40. I know Matt can give you the firearms piece if you want to go on what the hours are there.
So there's no set time amount set by the state in order to train on the usage of firearm or the proficiency. However, you must train every year to qualify in the use of the 2 platforms of firearms that we use at the police department. That's state mandated. Every officer is required to qualify in the usage of their handgun and patrol rifle. However, there's no set amount. The fact that we have limited in-service time and space availability, a lot of that time is monopolized because we have to train everybody to these specific state proficiency marks. So a lot of our time, typically about 16 hours over the course of the year, is dedicated to the usage of firearms, which includes proficiency, accuracy, but also decision-making when it comes to the usage of those firearms. And Lieutenant Hartwick can fill you in on some other ideas.
So again, working with estimates, we're working with very broad generalizations of what we could be doing here. But right now we have 32 hours of training. There are 24 hours of training that are required by the state annually. So we exceed that by 8 hours. We typically are training each one of those, so that breaks down to 4 in-service days, 8-hour days, and typically half of those hours are spent on the firearms range, one of the 2 facilities that we train at. And again, I think we've talked about the fact that when we go to those facilities, due to that limited space and time, we're not able to not shoot when we go to those ranges, just because it's an investment in our time and resources to get there. And so to answer your question here, what we're anticipating is that we could be training at a minimum an additional 4 hours per month, so we could be adding on essentially essentially 48 hours of training, and then use those additional in-service training days for more classroom style, the theory training, the training with community partners, communications. The neat part about this entire process, though, is that with that tactical training bay, we're able to put all of those things into practice. So again, it wouldn't be that we walk into that tactical training bay and we're presented with a high-risk scenario. It could just be presented with a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill type call for service. There's no such thing as routine, but as close as possible as it can be, the thing that we responded to yesterday, we could recreate in that space, where an officer would have the ability with a higher stakes, higher stress, to run through that scenario and not use any type of weapon at all. And now I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but again, it is the closest thing possible to a real life scenario without having people who may be impacted in some fashion or another. So I think we would easily be able to double the amount of our training hours, because officers could be training on duty before their shift or after their shift without having extensive travel time and other resources dumped into paying personnel to go off site to train. So we could break that down in a number of ways and come up with a greater strategic plan. But as I mentioned in those opening slides there, all of these components are interconnected and really make for a more efficient training experience and ultimately a better product and a better service for our community.
One last training piece that I want to bring up is 1993, I started through the academy as a law enforcement officer. There was a big push nationally, and two items. It was called culture diversity and verbal judo. Those were the two things that law enforcement officers were trained on. Verbal judo were communication skills. Culture diversity is self-explanatory. 30 years later, professional communications and fair and impartial policing. What we sometimes have difficulty is, who is your candidate to be a police officer? We can recruit at all areas, but most often, whether it's a big city or whether it's a smaller city or even a town or a village, the officers are sometimes coming from areas where they're not their neighborhood or the community they came from is not that diverse, and it's like history's repeating itself. What are police deficiencies? The ability to understand other cultures when you're having contact with them. The ability to bring, as part of our culture diversity, is bring different communities from different ethnic origins and talk about their interaction with police, so that the officer has a good idea how they're going to interact with them when they're out there in the community. These are items, and I keep saying we focus on one part of it, but the entire training component includes a variety and a multitude of training pieces where we want our officers to understand culture, to understand communication, and also understand how to handle things with an elevated heart rate. And at the end of the day, most of our incidents, our heart rate accelerates, and then it makes us, it's very difficult for now to do what we have to do within, our job description. You won't be able to control that if you don't train it.
Chief, I got another question. So you talked about lead remediation for the range. How much does that cost?
The lead?
Lead remediation.
Well, that's all part of the operational cost, which is anywhere, depending on how much we use it, anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. That's a part of that cost.
And how often do you have to do it? Or does that depend just on the number?
So you toured Mount Prospect, right?
No, I was not.
You weren't there. Okay. Well, so I have data from that specific facility. They remediate every 3 to 4 years at a cost of about $7,500. $7,500
Per year or per month?
for every 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
So it's not an annual cost for them.
And the number that you provide, the 60 and 50 are annual cost, isn't it?
Annual, yes. And potential annual income, and that's why it would vary to how much you use it, because this is a facility that would require it depending on how much you use it. So it can vary anywhere from as low as 10 to up to 50, but there's also, if you're up to $50,000 in operation costs, you're probably more like $60,000 in revenue.
So the other thing, because my accountant mind is going to say that when you add the cost, you also need to add, if we're going to do a very detailed cost analysis, we need to add also how much it's going to cost, kind of like the mortgage or the interest payment for that,
Yeah.
that additional $1.2 million that is going to cost that the tactical part of the training. So I have another question. Will you say that is a valid comment to say that you can do most of your training, in the training bay without the shooting range? Can you practice without all this scenario without the shooting range? And can you practice with, I think you mentioned that, Ned, in one of the meetings. You mentioned that you can do most of your training without, you can still have all this training that you mentioned, but without the shooting range.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The biggest piece, and as it's also been mentioned, why don't other municipalities have this, which would be the biggest demand. If you're going to, when we questioned other departments and asked them, would you support this project if we had this? The biggest support is you have to have the three components, because then you're going to come in and you're going to use your half day or your full day to train. And the biggest thing that everybody's going to ask for their training component to bring other agencies here is the range. And without the range, if we just have the theory, the classroom, we're not going to have people want to utilize the space.
I get that part, but I think, that I can, most of the officers can replicate some other scenario happening in other, you mentioned something happened in another municipality and a scenario, and we can replicate that, what happened in our training bay. My question is, you can do most of the training with your officers, like the tactical training, the scenario training, all of that. Without that shooting range. The shooting range, I imagine that they're going to have some time on the day that they're going to say, we are going to practice firearm, training, and this is what they do. But, most of the time you have this training facility that they can do a big portion of the other training that doesn't require to have a firearm shooting. You know what I mean?
Then you know what the outcome is. If you know that you're not going to fire your pistol because there's absolutely no way because there's no range there, then you know the outcome, and that's not effective training.
But can you practice with other types, firearms that they are not real? You don't have like a training one?
We have that, and we've done that. We have plastic firearms where we use in different scenarios, but each scenario is specific. You still have to have the ability to know that this is a potential shoot or no shoot situation and how you would de-escalate. But if you know what your outcome is because you have a fake firearm or no bay, it's not the training that we want to get where your heart rate's going to elevate. We can just simply go to the range, and to fire off a pistol will elevate your heart rate for many of us officers. And that's just hitting a paper target. You're not going to get that same elevated heart rate when you have a what is the name for our plastic guns? Is it the blue guns? Or that's not a semi-machine gun, but the plastic guns. They're plastic, yeah.
So to expand on that, part of what we're incorporating in the design is that it is a tactical range versus your standard shooting range where you're standing at a 25-yard line and shooting downrange to a stationary target. The whole purpose of the tactical range is these guys are going to be able to move around the range and create those scenarios. So it's not necessarily just standing there and shooting at a target. It's determining when to shoot, when not to shoot.
But they always have to shoot the goal.
But that's the whole purpose of all of that ballistic paneling that is adding to the cost is the fact that it's a tactical range. No, I get that part, but this is what I asked the question because, I don't know, I am not a police person, so I am asking is most of those scenarios you can replicate without, having a real gun. That's it.
Yeah, so the scenario you can replicate. It's incorporating the triangle that I had on the slide here earlier of all of those skills together. So one of the critiques of law enforcement training is that it's not a total scenario, meaning that you're not recreating the whole scenario. You simply walk into a room, you're presented with a high threat scenario, and then you react, and then you repeat it, and you repeat it. What this would be able to do, we would be able to do is we'd be able to recreate basically a portion of an officer's shift. They're dispatched to an incident, they have to use their skills, and then they have to make a decision. Then they engage in that decision, they engage in that encounter, and then they're pulled off of line. If it's a use of a critical incident scenario, then they have to render aid. They have to run through the whole scenario as close to possible, and then they may be interviewed, have to write a report, and so on. And so you're developing a more robust training program. The other component of that, though, is the proficiency. We ultimately still need to practice with that tool. I think I made the comparison of a surgeon practicing with a plastic scalpel, a firefighter going into practice fighting fires without fire. They're all realism components that induce stress and recreate what that officer is going to experience. So if that happens in the field, when that happens in the field, that's not the first time that they're experiencing it. We could practice in this space right now if we wanted to, but the purpose of this room is to hold public meetings. And so that's what we're really talking about here.
To expand on that.
Who has a question? Shannon and then Gabriel.
Well, I got kind of a question for council. Has anybody here fired a gun before? I mean, does anybody remember what it's like when you fire a gun and what it does to your heart rate, even when you know what you're doing? You know, just remember that, and then on top of a situation that is out of control. Just kind of put yourself in that position of what that officer is going through. It's scary. And I just think the more practice you have, the better off you will be. You wouldn't want somebody flying a plane that's only been doing it maybe 20, 40 hours a year. I'd want somebody who's a little bit more skilled. Same with driving a car. You know, or anything else. So I just all I want you to do is put yourself in the officer's frame of mind when they are going through something like that. Because I'm going to tell you, I've been in positions where, as a healthcare worker, things get scary real quick. And we don't have guns, we don't have those things, but I mean, I can only imagine adding that element into it would be extremely stressful.
So I guess I want to have like a big picture statement that I guess leads to a question. So like I'm a very short white woman, so I do not feel threatened by the police at all. And I would never have any reason to think so. And my whole life I've trusted police, and I know many of you, and I trust the Fitchburg Police Department. I do. I think you all are doing a good job. I think you have the right intentions. I think you're working to make the community safer, which is what we all want. That being said, I have residents that don't trust police. And it's not because of individuals in the Fitchburg Police Department. It's because of things that have happened around this country that we all know. Mm-hmm. And it's related to bigger forces in our country that are bigger than any one of us. You know, structural racism, implicit bias, things of that nature, which I know you're familiar with. So trust was broken in policing by people that are not in this room. And so I have residents that don't trust police. And there is a valid concern there, even though it has nothing to do with you. I hope that makes sense. So, but what I'm trying to get at here is, so when people hear that we want to spend like almost $4 million on a training facility that you can shoot guns in, there are people that are like, I don't want to pay for that because they don't trust police. And that has nothing to do with you as individuals. So what I guess my overarching, what I'm getting at, and you feel free to respond as well, but like if we do make this investment in this facility, I feel that there needs to be a continued effort to engage with the community and build trust with the community above and beyond what you've already done, because of that significant investment that we're making in the police training. So do you welcome that kind of community engagement, even something so far as an oversight committee that could learn about the training process and kind of bring a community perspective to that effort?
Well, a couple of things is, and I think we're saying the same thing. But I would say don't look at yourself as the resident being stopped by police. Put yourself in the position of the police officer. You said I don't know how tall you are, but now you're that person, and now you're going to call trouble subjects, and now you're the police officer, and you have to take action. How would you feel? Those are things that I would pass on to you. The purpose of the training is for it, especially the community room that we have there, is we have no area to entertain community as a police department. We want an area where we can entertain community. The same things that you brought up is part of community engagement is get the community in there. We have not had a citizens academy. This is the area where you break down the barriers. This is the area where even groups like the NAACP would like to see or see us run some training in the range, in the DAT room. I don't think you need an oversight committee. We do have a police and fire commission, but there is no reason why you can't train with groups like those. There's no reason why they can't come in and be a part of, I'll go old school and say, culture diversity. And for them to sit down and have some training where we can discuss these things. That is community engagement for both, to educate both sides. So they can see what our officers are the officers that we're hiring, to have that interaction in a safe area where we both can interact and express opinions. But if we don't have that area, we're back in the basement here, where many people don't even know that there's a police station down there. We have no area to entertain any group. So the things that you said are for the reasons that we wanted as well. That is part of training. So we're saying the same thing, to bring these groups in and work with these groups.
I just have to add a little nuance to that, though, because I don't want this to turn into either we support it fully or we want the department in the basement, because I think every single member of this body has agreed, and through the CIP process every single year, that we need a standalone facility. I don't think anybody on this council's debated that. And to Gabriella's earlier point about an oversight committee, this is something the city of Madison implemented, 3-4 years ago, Jim? Is that, yeah. And, it was in response to, things that have happened in the city of Madison prior. And it was a grassroots effort that took a really long time, but it's a committee that has full representation, from various aspects of the community. It's very intentional. It's well thought out. So I don't want to speak to, we haven't gone in depth about that, but that's I think what you're referring to, and that goes kind of beyond a 5-member PFC that can, just oftentimes meet behind closed doors and make personnel issues versus, this is a different type of a thing that she's referring to. So I just wanted to clarify. I mean, I know many of you know that, but I wanted to kind of clarify that out in the air that those are two different types of bodies.
I don't want to beat this to death. I think we have talked about it enough on the range. But, what Gabriella said about the trust and everything, I think people are missing the point about training and that no-shoot point of view. When I was a young officer, I made a traffic stop. And the way this guy came out of the car when I was in front of my car walking up, he spun out of that car so fast, I pulled my gun and had my finger on the trigger ready to shoot. And it was only because of training, one, that I got my gun out that fast, and also comprehending what was actually going on. That's training. So we're not all offensive. And then the other part that we also train on is when we have our guns get jammed. And you got to be able to shoot that gun, and when it gets a double feed is what we call it, be able to strip that magazine, also clear the chamber, reload, and didn't get back on target. And you got to do this supposedly while somebody's shooting at you. So it's not just, it's an offensive type thing that we're just going to go out there and just start shooting people. It's a lot for our safety too that we're training, so we go home. So I just want to put that point out there because I think some people get the idea you put the range out there and everything else, and like we just want to shoot people. Because just like Shannon said, that incident that I had, your heart is beating fast, and you're shaking, and the only way that you get through that is through training. So it is a safety thing for us, and I think it's a safety thing for the community.
And I just want to clarify that I believe every word you're saying. Like, I personally 100%, like that, I buy that argument, but I have residents that don't. And so that's what I'm trying to say is, like, if we're going to make this investment, and I have concerns about not the upfront cost, because I think we can theoretically afford that investment, or we can cover it with grant funding, the operating costs. And it's not just like the physical building, it's basically a business. Like, we have to have people to run this, and we have to replace that equipment down the line. We're on the hook for all of that replacement costs in the future, and we face levy limits. So, I think the cost is still a concern for me, but I think the overarching idea of training is still an issue that worries people. And I understand that might not feel fair to you, and that I believe that may not be fair in reality, but for people it's a real concern, and it's a valid concern based on things that happen and their experience with in lots of ways. So I just think that if we do make this investment, the community deserves some input into how that facility is used. And I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like that's an important caveat for me personally supporting a training facility. And I don't know how I'm going to vote yet exactly, but I just want to make that point. And I think it's important. I think people need that. I hear that, and I think it's valid, and I think we need to air that perspective.
If I could just add on to that quickly, the community members that you're representing that you speak of, I think we've all had the opportunity to engage with them in some fashion, whether it's a result of a call for service or community outreach. And we certainly recognize that need. And I think that we also recognize that everyone in our community, no one knows when they're going to call us or what they're going to call us for. But I think it's fair to say that anyone that may call us wants the best person possible responding to that call. And we have been, as the chief mentioned earlier, we have been hiring, recruiting, and interviewing people repeatedly throughout the last 2 years. And there are a variety of different types of people entering the workforce or interested in a career in law enforcement. And it is our job to take what they bring to the table. And again, whether they're from another part of the state or they're from Fitchburg, and train them to the standards that we hold our department accountable to best serve those communities, because anyone in our city could need us at any given time. And so the police department, I think there's some belief that the police department is going to uproot itself and respond to a call for service, or that the police department alone is going to reduce crime. What the police department, what the facility and the training components do is it increases the efficiency and the competency and all those things that we talked about earlier, so that when our officers start their shift and they go out into the community, they're in the best position possible to serve under a variety of challenging circumstances. So I think to build that trust, this facility helps that part of this.
I've asked this in some of the community meetings, and I know we've fleshed it out and talked about it, but and I have had some conversations with some Madison officers who kind of described to me to the best of their ability like how the Madison facility works. My understanding is that it's a facility that's open to basically any law enforcement agency that may seek to use it. In addition to, there's private firms that may use it as well. And I think retired officers who've had a certain level of experience have the ability to use it as well. So I mean, it kind of goes a long way in explaining why it's so booked up and unavailable to different departments. My question is, looking into the possibility of co-constructing this with other departments, co-constructing it with other governmental entities, versus us, a city of $34,000, constructing it on our own. Has that been fleshed out? And if it can be, can we think about like how to restrict the use of it by every single organization around and have it built in a kind of thoughtful way and utilized in a thoughtful way so that it's not being filled to the brim and people can't necessarily access it. And I don't know if my question makes sense, but, you know, we have a cooperative, you know, EMS, you know, with other municipalities. So we have experience in kind of cooperating and co-building, you know, either departments or facilities. Is that a possibility with this particular facility, given the need for tactical training, given the need for other types of training?
So the short answer to your question, Joe, is no. We haven't explored any cooperative engagement with any other law enforcement agency. Part of the reason why is because the variety, the number of officers throughout a variety of agencies varies. Their scheduling varies. Their own individual department needs and or budgets vary. The types of the equipment they use vary. Their own individual municipality politics vary as far as who's all going to get involved in a facility like you state. There's so many different variety of factors that go into a regional training center where 7 to 10 different municipalities would get on board to try to make all of those decisions and then equalize when any other agency is going to be using that. Part of the thing that we're looking for in this facility, to Alder Gerhardt's point, is that access to allow for the community, for us to have full control of this training area, to ensure that many of these community outreach efforts are being handled. We would not feel comfortable to say, Madison Training Center, we're going to bring in a group of these citizens so they can experience all of the trainings that we attempt to put on over the course of the year. If we have our own facility, we have that freedom, that flexibility to include everybody in our community to ensure that they have the best understanding, as well as they can provide us with some level of insight on what could work best in these situations, not from a law enforcement standpoint. I get your point as far as the cost savings share, and it's not lost on the discussion either. However, we feel as if this facility will provide Fitchburg with the opportunity to stand above the rest of the municipalities within Dane County, within this region.
The efficiency to get multiple agencies, obviously, it'll be the more municipalities, the more councils that would have to approve that. And right here, you have a council that is struggling with making a decision on this. You bring in other councils. That is going to be a piece. I think the way around that, because I'm not disagreeing with you on this one, I think the way around it is the way we're doing it is to make our compelling argument to the state for grant funding. Because now the grant funding, if we can get it, and nothing's up for sure, but if, let's just say we got that, that will help in the cost here. But then it would also, we're getting other municipalities to sign on that they would support this to be able to do what we're saying we want to do. So that would be the easiest, most efficient way of accomplishing what you're asking. Get a grant and pay for it because we're getting support from the other municipalities and we own it.
If I could, I know you don't like anecdotal evidence, but I feel like this one's more relevant to exactly what you're talking about. We have a client in the Fox Valley. We're currently near completion for a firing range in the City of Neenah Police Department. A couple of years ago, they elected to spend the money on their own training facility because their regional training facility at Fox Valley Technical College, which has a very robust public safety training facility, is so crowded by other agencies, similar to what you're dealing with Dane County's outdoor range, Madison's indoor range, that they as a community elected to, hey, we feel like it's important that our officers have priority in training, and that's the route that they went, as opposed to the regional training facility that they already have.
And I guess my response to that, my question to that, Madison has their policy as a range that is very open to a lot. Sorry, it kept going on and off. Why they make their facility widely available to many agencies in many different places for a facility, that could be controlled. And that's I guess my point. Not so like every law enforcement agency across the state or across the country could use this, but maybe Dane County only and not Madison would be able to use it because Madison's got their own range. So that's sort of my line of thinking in asking that question.
Next question. Also from Alder Jetzer. Council was provided with 3 different cost options. Can we ballpark cutting square footage and keeping quality materials? Those numbers were on the 35, 40, and 45. Examples were given, I think, back on December 12th for 65,000 square feet, for 61,000 square feet, and let's see, 61, 65, and 53.
Chief, those numbers you just read there, those were my math, just saying, taking the ratio of square footage to dollars.
Gotcha.
So I'm asking whether the square footage varies linearly with the dollar amount, or if it's more complicated than that.
Gotcha.
It's not completely linear, but you're also not far off with your calculations. So what I will say is, if you want that 53,000 square foot building at approximately $35 million, that's something we can design. However, part of what we're doing in partnering with the city of Fitchburg on this project is making sure that you're doing your due diligence and getting the right facility long term, and not being back where you started, it actually even prior to the 2015 study, where you built a building and 10 years later you were out of room again. So understanding the growth that's happening in Fitchburg and understanding the need for space for the police department, that's where we came up with that approximately 75,000 square foot building, knowing that expansion in the community is happening and will continue to happen long term, that we're planning for the future with this building and not necessarily capping it because you don't want to be in the same scenario that you're in today 10 or 15 years from now.
I understand what you're saying there, but I feel like we missed a step in the process. We didn't engage the community and ask them what they wanted, because when I approved the architecture contract, the CIP had $35 million in it. So from my perspective, I thought you were designing a $35 million project, or something around that. And what we've been presented with is a $50 million project. But then because we only have one option, I'm kind of in this position where it's like, I don't have a choice. That's how I feel, because I never got a chance to say, no, we can't have a facility that big because my constituents don't support that. My community doesn't support that. I've never had that opportunity to say that. And we're so far down the process that I actually feel a little bit confused about what to do about that. And I don't, that's not really a question so much as a statement. I feel like we missed a step.
So I can respond. So my fee proposal as part of the RFP process reflects a $30 to $35 million building as well. after interviewing the police department and understanding their true needs, and that those needs really did align with that 2015 study, it really became clear that the $35 million building isn't really feasible. Could you do that smaller building? Yes. But again, the true need, the 20-year space needs for the City of Fitchburg Police Department is that 75 to 80,000 square foot building, and we're right on target with that. If you want the smaller facility, that's again something we can absolutely design. But the way this process works is you did your study in 2015. That's where those varying concepts would have come to fruition of, hey, do we do an addition? Do we do a new facility? What size is that facility? Let's look at some different options. Your money would be, not to say wasted, but you'd be spending a lot more money to do it through a schematic design stage. So it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars, to come up with those different options at a schematic design level.
But was that tactical bay part of that 2015 study? Because I don't recall it being as much of a discussion until more recent, in the more of the recent past. And I think that was asked in some of the public feedback.
I would have to go back and reread the study, but I don't believe they had any sort of tactical training in that 2015 study.
And I think that sort of speaks to part of Gabriella's concern. Right, because that is one of the things that's driving the price up. That's, $3.9 million of the $15 million increase.
Well, so that's part of it. The other part is really, if you look at that 2015 study, as I showed on that second to last slide, the last time I was here in December, that 2015 study really didn't have the numbers for a purpose-built police station. There were a lot of exclusions from their probable cost estimate. So regardless of what types of spaces are in or out, the numbers didn't necessarily add up. That was more of building another city hall as opposed to a purpose-built police station, regardless of whether there's tactical training in or out. And at the end of the day, what we have through schematic design is actually smaller than what was proposed in the 2015 study.
But I'm sorry, I need to keep mentioning this. That this is a newer component that we're bringing to the table, right, today and over the past few months. But what Gabriella mentioned was, right, that part wasn't fleshed out in the same way that the study was fleshed out. And that's what's being put in front of us. And that's what we were asked to vote on in December, that we're now pushing back to February in order to allow for that fleshing out. And this is too, for me, it's too late of a time for that to be introduced. We should have had thorough discussions about this over time. I know it's been brought up, it's been in some conversations in police facility meetings, but has it really been brought to the forefront, in a major way, prior to December? My response is no, because I've seen other projects that we fleshed out at a city level in much greater detail that are much lower stakes financially.
Okay. Shannon?
In the December or August meeting, Chief?
We've been discussing it all along. It wasn't a secret. I mean, we discussed it since I've been here. We started this project at the beginning of 2023. And the ad hoc committee talked about it right at the beginning in July of 2023. And it's been a topic of conversation ever since. But again, this was way back as far as we can go in 2023. I wasn't here 10 years ago, so I can't tell you what was going on 10 years ago or that. But I can tell you, since I've been here, it was a part of the discussions.
It was. I want to make a clarification. It was. They were at the beginning of 2023, or maybe the first quarter, or maybe when I became mayor, I heard verbally about adding this shooting range, But then the first time that I saw it in a piece of paper was in the July estimate, a paper pool, the $44 million. It was a line there, So that one was the first time that we saw it, like, okay, it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
in that July estimate. It was the first one, $44 million.
Right.
And then, yes, it was discussed maybe in the HADCO committee and all of that, but maybe the council, this was the opportunity to discuss for the council. It was in the December one. It was when we have our first discussion as a council about this, this component in the facility. That's it. What is the other one?
Okay, we got that piece.
Oh, Shannon, do you want to speak?
Well, I was just wondering if we could kind of move on from the firing range, since that's what we've been talking about for like the last hour, and it kind of seems like we're getting off track about asking questions. It's kind of more comments. So I just would kind of like to.
He's answered question that we were submitted. So, and this is each council member.
This is, we've been talking about this like constantly, and it seems like it's the same answers over and over and over again. So I just kind of wanted to move on.
I understand, but also some of the questions that council member provided, they need to be answered, and if they have additional questions, they need to be responded, because this is a very big investment. As you know, there are people that they are not fully, they haven't been. I don't think they make the final decision yet, and this is why they are still asking questions. So, okay, next one.
The next question, also by Jetser, we're going to break it down, but it's several questions within one. Can we save some square feet by consolidating or removing any rooms? The first one is, can the roll call room and community room be one and the same? Who wants to take that one on? Ned?
You or me? So the reason for having those separate is they serve very different purposes. The community room is public facing. The roll call room has very sensitive material in it at times, and the whole purpose of it is to have a very specific police function. However, where we've located the roll call room in the building, it isn't just roll call. It also serves as an additional meeting room. It could be a smaller training room. If you have a larger event in the community room, you can have that smaller 10 or 15 person training in that roll call room. So it's serving multiple purposes already. But I think the biggest difference is that's not a room that you want to have public access to.
There's deployment maps, there's wanted subjects, so whatever deployment or information is being passed on, it's on the walls, it's on the boards, it's on the screens, and it's open it's law enforcement sensitive, which would mean you would need both rooms.
Next one.
Next one is the defense and arrest tactic room and fitness room. Can it be one and the same? Actually, it is one and the same. It's divided, but it is one in the same area because you would utilize both areas for that, which is the way it was designed.
Yeah, so that is one large space that is divided, where the wrestling mats are on one side, the gym equipment's on the other. I mean, similar to if you were to go to any fitness center and they have multiple functions within that exercise room. That's really the purpose there.
Okay, next one.
Next one is, can we have one gender neutral locker room? You want to start off with that one?
We have that in the plan already.
Yes.
So we have male and female locker rooms on a larger scale, and then there is a gender neutral locker room. We're calling it a universal locker room, and that has, I believe, 4 or 5 lockers in it, as well as place for changing, showering, and toilet and sink.
In addition to that, there was we did look into this. It wasn't like it was completely ignored. I think I brought up this position on the staffing from the female staffing on the department. We have currently 19 females sworn as civilian. We want to increase, and we want to follow the rule of Fitchburg's plan for 30 for 30. This was a big deal for them. But aside from that, and I don't want to get too much into it because last time I think I said too much and was told I needed to talk to HR because there are some privacy issues that I cannot put out. So, in short, can I keep going? The other piece is no, there are locker rooms where you have your locker rooms and then you have your individual bathroom, shower, and changing room. The equipment, if we're going to change, it becomes we have groups that would come in, and let's just say they want to work out before their tour of duty. Now they have to come in. Just throw out their future 10, 15 officers that are going to come in to change. Are you going to have 10, 15 individual changing rooms and showers? It will then become a cost issue when you have multiple changing rooms, multiple showers, multiple bathrooms, where now we're expending more money, and then the efficiency to be able to change and get it, be ready for roll call or change and get ready to work out and go home now becomes a huge task for lack of individual rooms. So currently the way it's set up, there is a male locker room, there is a female locker room, and then there's a neutral locker, space to change with lockers, with shower and bathroom. So you can accommodate, basically the needs of any way a person would want to identify.
Okay, so this is a sticking point for me because I think I think people don't understand what a gender-neutral locker room looks like, and I didn't really understand until I started researching a little bit more. So I'll just share a very easy-to-find facility or website I found that gave you a really nice summary about specifically public safety buildings. So I'll share it on the screen. So this is a traditional one. Right, you have a men's and a women's, and in this case, you guys have a separate universal one. If you do a gender-neutral one, it is a bank of lockers, and this is not necessarily exactly what we have, obviously, but this is just an example where you have private rooms for changing and showering. So this is actually the best-case scenario, because there are women in a women's locker room that don't like changing in front of other women. There are men in men's locker room that don't like that, and also there are people that identify as men that might not that might not want to change in front of other people. There's lots of different scenarios in which somebody wouldn't want to be in a public room. So a private changing area is actually the best for everybody. And also it doesn't, the problem with having a universal bathroom is that you're othering these people. You're having them be like, oh, I'm non-binary. And the goal really is so people don't really have to say, I'm male, I'm female, I'm non-binary. They don't have to say that because they just go into the locker room, they, put their stuff in a locker. They go into the private room. They shower. They come out. It's completely neutral and equitable.
So at the outset, we did have exactly the example that you showed, a true gender-neutral, non-gendered locker space, and we do it quite often on a lot of our projects. It becomes a scale issue. So in a smaller department, it's really a no-brainer. We do it in a lot of our fire departments, which they have, smaller locker room needs because there's more fire department spaces. So you guys, I believe, have 3 stations, right? In Fitchburg?
Two active ones, yeah.
So again, spreading that need across multiple buildings, whereas the police department's one building. So when you get to this scale, it can be done. We have done it on some of our projects. However, it becomes a very big cost, and it eats up a lot of space.
So you're saying this gender-neutral bathroom would take up more space than 3 different locker rooms?
Because of the amount of, like Chief was saying, the amount of shower and changing rooms that you would need for a force this size.
But how many shower and changing rooms do you have amongst the 3 locker rooms?
I think we have 6 showers among the 3.
And you can't have a gender-neutral bathroom with 6 individual shower changing stalls?
You could, but what I'm saying is if the policy is everyone's changing behind that closed door, then you only have 6 spaces for people to change in.
So I think what the chief is saying, so if we have 10 people reporting for duty at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they need to prepare, and we only have 2 or 3 spaces to do that, then we have to wait and rotate through. It's an inefficiency for people to change. I think no one's arguing the concept of efficiencies in the smaller space, as Andrew's mentioning here, on that level. And so, like a fire department where you have less staff there, but if you have a significant number of people coming in to report for duty at the same time or trying to go home at the same time when you have changeover, then the traffic jam becomes people waiting to use those changing areas. Because in our men's locker room, for example, right now, you have people that come to work maybe partially in their uniform. So all they need to do is they need to put on their ballistic vest and throw on their uniform shirt and they're ready to go. So they don't need to require a full-on changing area. Where we may have people that are going to work out. We may have people coming in off duty at the beginning of their shift or the end of their shift that are working out, need a shower, change. So there's a whole variety of things. And so having just the 4 spaces as you have here in your example, that's, I think, what we're trying to articulate is where the inefficiency comes in, keeping in mind we're trying to be as efficient with time and workflow in this facility.
Yeah, but you have to have more lockers than you need because you can't anticipate how many female officers, non-binary officers, and male officers, right?
That's actually something we've been studying quite a lot. And the way we're designing our locker rooms now is to be able to flex one way or the other. So not putting, in a traditional setting, you want to have your toilets back to back to make efficient use of all of the plumbing. So you have a common plumbing wall between the 2 locker rooms, putting the lockers outboard. Now what we're doing is putting those plumbing areas linear, allowing us to put a simple partition in between male and female. So if you need 10 more female lockers than you have in that current design, then it's a few $1,000s to change it as opposed to blowing up the whole thing and starting over.
But that's why I think you just make a gender neutral locker room from the start. I mean, so if it's a 10, you're talking about 10 officers, like at the max that we're changing at the same time. So you have 6 showers, changing rooms, and you have 4 changing rooms without a shower. I just don't accept that there's not an arrangement that's in the same footprint that doesn't make this model work. Because I understand that people don't, the whole point of that bathroom is that people aren't changing in front of each other, right? So not every stall would need a shower. If you're talking about we only have 6 showers amongst the 3 different bathrooms, then you do 6 shower stalls and you do 4 or 6 changing stalls.
And we've done that.
Okay.
And it works depending on the department. Another consideration here, and I think Chief shied away from it, but I'm going to speak in hypotheticals, is the culture and how that department operates. There's different departments view that locker room issue differently, and part of it has to do with things that I won't get into. The other part is when you have a single bank of lockers like that, where everybody's going into the same locker area, that's one of the few spaces in the building that we're not putting cameras in. So that's an enclosed space where you're commingling of whoever's in there. And it's somewhere where, not on this project, but on other projects, we've had the patrol officers say, I wouldn't feel safe in a space like that because I don't know who I'm going to piss off on any given day and, what might happen in that locker room.
That's wild to me. I mean, if that's happening, that's actually a huge culture issue that's the level of harassment. I don't know. I just okay.
I have some, but I think Alder Strassman.
Well, here's the thing too. I'm going to be honest. If I had a choice to be in a gender neutral or a women's locker room, I would feel more comfortable being in a women's locker room. That would just be my preference. you got to look at it from everybody's standpoint. I mean, I think having a gender neutral bathroom would be fantastic, but I think it's very important for people to be comfortable in being female in a female bathroom. Personally, this world is not nice all the time. People are creepy. And I've run into enough people that are, that can be kind of creepy. I just would not want to be I wouldn't want to put myself in that position. I would feel more comfortable as a female.
And I just want to add, when we started this project in design, what you're showing in this design was very similar. It wasn't until we started sharing this, and this isn't my decision. Well, I'm the chief, so I got to say it's my decision. But everybody has input, and the input from the female-based body in the police department is what steered us back to what we're at today. Now, I understand what you're saying, but I have to also listen to the staff and what they're comfortable. I cannot explain why, and as I stated, I don't want to be the one explaining for them. I know there's one officer, female sergeant behind me, if she's willing to speak on it, but at the end of the day, I don't want to get caught up in HR issues. What I would ask for you, if you wanted to or even sit down with HR and go through and poll the officers to get it right from them or our staff. I don't want to get myself caught up in a touchy situation like that.
Facility for the next 20, 30, or 40 years, so you don't know how it's going to be the perspective of maybe the next female group cohort coming in the next 10 years or 20. That's it,
Right.
And that's
let's continue because it's 10 o'clock at night. So
I just want to say one more thing. I would love to speak to any of the officers that want to talk to me about it. I would be happy to have that conversation before the next meeting. But I will just say that we are building a station for the future, right?
Yes.
We don't know what the future of the police department is, but you better believe that if we build a bathroom structure like this, it is not welcoming to people that are non-binary, and for some people that are transgender, it may not be welcoming either. So you are excluding them, and you are making some people uncomfortable.
We're not excluding. We have space for whoever wants to.
You're making them. You go there.
Othering. Yeah.
Inclusivity through exclusivity.
Okay. So anyway, that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Let's continue with the next one.
Hang on. Just hard numbers. Can you ballpark how much space could be saved if we were to go with gender neutral locker rooms with individual changing areas?
You're saying saved?
Yes, because if you're planning for 100 officers, you've talked about the movable wall in there, so it's not like you have to do 80 men and 60 women just to be safe or whatever. But is there a significant savings that could be achieved by combining?
I will have to get back to you on that. I don't have that number in front of me right now.
Chief, how many? It's 10 o'clock. So how many more questions do we have?
We're almost there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So keep on going?
Yes.
Okay. This other group, and they're not so much questions, but it was an email by Alder Maldonado, and I just want to bring about some of the things that you asked for engagement. So just want to say we're there or we're not there. You asked for multiple engagement requests. We're working on that. We did some. The financial implications, you were at some of the presentations where we showed the financial implications. If you want us, we can bring them up again today. Ned, do you have those numbers, or are you okay? Because we had the slide with the...
Right, yep.
Okay. The mailer is something I think is going to get discussed today about sending out the mailer. That's one piece that's not done, but will be discussed by you all. We did have it out on the Fitchburg Star. We do have web presence. We do have a QR code and poster in City Hall. And obviously, Ned pulled out some of the data that we put in that information to include next door. I just want to acknowledge that we did listen to your requests, and we're working on those pieces. Alder Gerhard made the next suggestion about no questions but outreach. We showed the data on our outreach with the slide that Ned showed on the, who we're reaching out to, what forms of social media we're using, and some of that next door data. The other questions are from the mayor on the different building costs shown in slide 1212 presentation. I think we've already brought it up, but the 45, 40, and 35 million, what it gets you. Are you satisfied, or do you?
I am not, but let's continue.
The one thing I will say about that is I can't answer that. The people are here. If you need that answer, they're the ones that can answer that question. Why hasn't Dane County taken the obligation to build an indoor range if there is a need for this type of training? We explained it. Dane County, the Dane County Sheriff's Office, their only obligation to train is their staff, and the training facility is for them. They work with the other agencies, and we're allowed to train in their area based on needs. The next question is, why doesn't Madison College have? Does Madison College have a range? And if this is a training place for Fitchburg PD, and Matt asked and answered, can you reiterate, elaborate a little bit more?
Again, this has been asked and answered. Madison College's range at Commercial Avenue is not to be utilized by the college. I did have a discussion with the director of the Law Enforcement Recruit Academy at Madison College. He is aware of zero intent for the college to build any sort of ballistic range, and they have to depend on Dane County as well as Madison PD for their firearms related training, and he welcomes this facility and would be very open to utilizing specifically the range for Recruit Academy training.
Keep going. Okay. Do we have data that supports the training component? And again, I think we discussed enough about the training, or do we need further information, or to be continued?
Alder Gerhard asked for some data, but so we need to. But we can continue.
Would the surrounding municipalities benefit from this building? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about operational costs for the range already.
Okay.
So those were all the questions that have been asked.
Okay.
Follow-up is to contact CIVMIC to see if there's an added cost. You're seeking, Alder Gerhard is seeking more training, and you want some information. We can bring up the 4 lawsuits for Madison and their shootings. I mean, we can find the data and all that, but
yeah. So any other Gabriel?
I have a few more questions that do not have to be answered right now, but I want to talk about them at the next. I will have questions at the next meeting. So I mentioned this at the Saturday meeting, but question about why we don't include more space for social workers. It looks like the current plan looks like it has an office for 1 social worker, and I assume as the department grows, we may want to add additional ones. So if we're building for the future, I don't understand why we don't just include space for 2 or 3 instead of just the 1. Because we were talking about renovating space in the future, but I thought we were building a police station for the future. If you want to respond to that now, you can.
Yeah, so that's actually, I mean, if that's a desire, a need in this project, that's something we could reallocate space to, particularly in that area of the building. Unfortunately for Fact TV, who's right over there, it would probably come out of their space. But I think there could be some reworking of the space in that area.
I would also add the social worker program may expand in a couple different areas. So not just a generalist, but maybe someone that works specifically with mental health, maybe someone that works in a different type of our alternative service delivery through a social worker program. There are flex office spaces that are in there, built forward thinking
okay.
with some space in there that could be moved to different parts of the facility. And then also, as we look at different models as to how best to employ a support position like that, there could be different models where that space is shared part-time. There's different flexibility that's there.
And as I stated that to you individually that day, that office space where the social workers now can at least can accommodate one more, and they still have an interview room. The space that's out there, that's what's complicated. We don't know what the future is going to bring us. The world I came from, there were social workers in the building, from domestic violence to other type of advocates that would work and go through security clearances to be, and to be ingrained with the law enforcement agencies, which is why you have some of these spaces there. If we start removing those spaces, then we don't have expansion, or even we don't give our future leaders the opportunity to grow in whichever way they want to do it with the community.
Two of my questions came up at RCC last night, so you already know, but I'm interested in the cost for preparing the garage for electric vehicles. We don't talk about that now. Also, interest in how much fleshing out the solar panel capability, what that cost would be, and what the cost savings would be over time, so we can make a decision about whether or not we want to make that investment up front based on the cost savings in the big picture. And then the last thing is, I have a lot of questions about the overarching cost, and I know there was some slide in the presentation on Saturday that talked about how that I can't remember, it's $49.2 million is broken down. So people are like, how is a building cost that much? But I know there's a certain number that's what do you call it? Furnishings.
There's hard costs and there's soft costs.
Yeah, there's contingency funding. I assume that there's a significant cost for site preparation. I think it would be interesting for the public to understand what the different costs are, because I think anyone that's the facility itself doesn't necessarily cost that much money, and I think people deserve to know kind of the details of how that is fleshed out. Thank you.
We've seen that 600 plus per square foot number floated out there, but that's not construction cost, that's all in. So yeah, that's something we can work on getting more information to the public.
Thank you.
Those first two questions, we did get some information from our consultant engineers. So I know Pepper Construction's working on some of the cost estimating. Just so you know, there will be a need for increased electrical capacity if we decide to electrify the whole garage. So it would go from a 2,000 amp service to a 2,500 amp service. So that's what we're working on pricing out.
Any questions? And Jay.
I just have I don't want to get into the weeds on all this stuff. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I did appreciate the public meetings that you guys had last week. I think it was the wrong week of the year to pick, and I realize that there've been, so far, this process has had a lot of things wrong about it. There should have been more input from the public and the council prior to having a schematic diagram. There should have been that discussion should have been held ahead of time. Then all of a sudden we get this project thrown in front of us, and that's what we have. I realize in some ways the police department kind of got thrown under the bus. I've brought up the library process several times, and in the library process, the city actually hired a consultant to do all the public outreach. And while the police department is good at certain types of public contact, presenting a building construction project is just not something you're trained for. And I totally get that. And so I'm not upset with how this has been presented in that sense. I think you've done the best you can given the resources you have and being understaffed and. So the main question that I have and I don't expect an answer tonight, but in doing some other research, it looks like this building is somewhere in the area of $684 a square foot. And the numbers that I have seen for police stations that have been built recently around the country is about $580 a square foot. It could just be because we're in the Midwest and construction costs are higher here. I don't know. But I would like some more detailed information about why this building costs so much compared to other places in the country. I've made my concerns about this pretty clear, so I'm not going to get into the big discussion about whether I'm going to support this or not. I think if we're going to build a building, we should have a training facility, and that because our department is continuing to grow. I don't really care how much money we're going to get from other municipalities who may or may not use this facility, because that's just it's tinkling in the fountain. It's not even a consideration that makes any sense to consider as part of how much it's going to cost to build this. So I hope other departments do use this facility if we get it built, but it's not as if this is a money-making venture for the city of Fitchburg. It's not going to be. It's going to cost a lot of money, as public buildings do, because we're in a service business, and it just costs money to build these things and to operate them and to run a police department. I mean, the police department, when you look at the budget, I know people like to complain about, they're just writing speeding tickets so they can increase revenue. Well, the total, we have a $30 million budget, and I believe the total revenue we get from speeding tickets is around $187,000. Even if you just look at the police department budget, it's not even a thing. So some of the nickel and diming that we want to talk about, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. If we need all this stuff that's in this building, if we need 73,000 square feet, that's what we need. Something I do not want to see happen is something that happened with the library that we have talked about in the past year and a half, and that is the geothermal that powers the library has had some issues, and we've had to replace some expensive pieces of equipment. And the primary reason for that was because when the library was built, we were building it driven by cost. And there was a decision that we could do the geothermal as long as it didn't cost any more than $500,000. And so when you let price alone drive what you're doing, you end up oftentimes getting a product that is less than what you should have had. And so I don't want to make those types of mistakes on this building. So I don't really have anything else to say on it. I just wanted to throw those thoughts out there. And I don't know anything about gender neutral bathrooms, and I understand the explanation that Gabriella gave us tonight, and I understand the concerns that she has, and I think that's an important consideration. I think it would have been an important thing to consider before we had this schematic diagram in front of us. And that's the thing that's been the most disturbing to me through this process, is just the way, the order of things that have been done hasn't been right. Now here we are, and so I don't know what's going to happen with it at this point, but I'm looking forward to the next two public meetings. I would encourage whoever's going to be doing those meetings, it shouldn't be just a carbon copy of the 4 meetings of last week. There should be, some of the questions and answers you had tonight, Chief. Those should be incorporated into the presentation, and we should be giving the public at least some new information, possibly if there's time to research some of the other questions that came up tonight. That would be good to include. I do want to reiterate again, though, I appreciate the difficult position the police department's been put in trying to make all this happen in the process of being short-staffed and without really having the training to be able to make this type of a presentation in a way that addresses everybody's concerns. So thank you for the work that you've done. I know it's been hours and hours and hours of work. I mean, this one presentation is 38 slides long, and that's out. I know that's hours and hours of process, and so I appreciate that. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. Anything else, Chief? Or your team?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in on the building costs, Jay. You know, when you say that, is that construction cost standalone, or is that all-in project costs for that 550 number?
The 580 number? I don't know. It's.
Well, I think what I'm going to say here is that's very important, right? Because construction costs and just this estimate right now that we presented of the 49 million number, $483 a foot. When you add, the soft costs at $38 a foot, plus the GL insurance fee and bond that would be on that contractor's bid, we get to $549 a foot. We have 15% contingency and escalation built into the number that adds another $78 a foot to get us to the $660 total. So, if you just take construction costs, soft costs, and then the fee and bond costs, we get to $550 for this conversation. So, I mean, it's kind of in line with that number.
It might be right around there.
Right. So I just wanted to make that kind of clear. This number that you're saying 660 all in, that's soft cost, design fees, land acquisition costs, everything. So it's important to differentiate between construction and the whole project cost.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Just a couple. Thank you for those comments, Alder Allen. You have access to us at any given time and can communicate with us. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I felt was important today is to have Paul Woodard here, Jared, and Andrew for you to ask any questions. So please, if there's anything else, I know we're all tired, but if there's anything else that pertains to them, please ask, because they're here and I get asked the questions. I don't have their expertise to answer their questions, so.
Another comment that I heard from people in the meetings is that since this is a city, facility, why there is only police officer doing the presentation? So maybe in the next two, if you can bring someone from, Paul or someone from the city. I don't know, But I heard that comment, that why there are not other people from the city hall here, This is a city project. So the other thing I want to mention is that we are considering in the next round of the ARPA TIT investment plan that is coming soon in the next 2 months, 1 month. I am bringing forward a $50,000 amendment to that addition to the plan to invest in a PR to help the police department with the PR from the facility and also other internal projects that the city has. Because, I agree with you, Jay. They are police officers. They are not PR or marketers, and you have done a great job, in promoting the graphic, the design, the flyer. But this is not your area of expertise, guys. So you need help. So
thank you.
So I want to say thank you for the presentation and all of you for being here. And I think. A lot of questions were answered, so this is a good step moving forward.
Thank you. And lastly, we want to thank Fact TV. We thank you for all being there. Fact TV was there, and they have a short staff too, so thank you very much for doing everything you did to attend all the meetings.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, so next we move to the Standing Committee's report, and we are going to start with Finance. Randy.
All right, very good. Thank you. I motion to approve Resolution R-233-23, Police Squad Equipment Purchase.
Second.
Did Finance Committee approve?
Finance Committee approved.
Okay, so these one are,
Yeah, yes. See, we were authorized in the 2024 CIP to replace the four squad car vehicles with the needed equipment to install to be fully functional police squads. The equipment will take 10 to 15 weeks to arrive, so that's why we're asking for approval now. This is the equipment purchase.
any comments, question? I think this is what we do every year, so
Yes.
all those in favor of resolution R-233-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So next one.
Next one. Motion to approve Resolution R-235-23, Police Squad Video Camera Systems.
Second.
Did Finance approve?
Finance approved.
Okay, so this one is the...
Again, it's
for the, yeah.
Yeah, basically it's the video camera systems for the squad cars. And this also is also for the 2023 and the 2024 squad cars. This is the camera system.
Yeah, okay. Any question, no? Okay, all those in favor of resolution R-235-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carry. Okay, thank you. Next, we move to Personnel Committee.
We are meeting on February 20th at 4 p.m. and we'll be discussing a lot of the changes that came through the 2024 budget, making those position descriptions and et cetera. It'll be a good meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Public Safety and Human Services.
We didn't meet on Tuesdays, so I don't know if there's anything to report.
Okay. Unfinished business, we don't have anything. So when we move to new business, we have a direct referral. I don't know, Randy, can you move this?
Yes. Motion to approve Resolution R-10-24, amending the 2024 general fund budget, postcard mailing for police services facility.
Second.
This Finance Committee approved.
Finance Committee approved.
So can you explain what we're trying to do here?
A number of elected officials have requested a mailing to be sent to all residents to inform them about the police services facility. The cost of sending a postcard to approximately 15,000 addresses is $12,000. There are currently 5 officers and 1 support staff vacancy in the police department, so a portion of those vacancy savings could be redirected toward this project.
Okay, any question for that? Comments? Jay.
Yeah, so Chad, you and I talked about this last week, and I have a couple of questions. We're planning on 2 more meetings?
Yes, that's what the chief had said earlier.
Do we
this
know?
evening.
Yeah. Do we know what dates those will be?
Not to my knowledge, we do not, although we have a couple of options. Obviously, if those dates and locations can be set in time for us to put that information actually printed on the card. The other option would be is to have, I think in the PD page on this particular project, the QR code could take you directly to the location on the website, or the website that would identify those dates and locations as well. I think it boils down to time sensitivity. Obviously, we know there's a number of business days that would be required in order to get the postcards printed and ultimately mailed, and to arrive at mailboxes, a week or so in advance of these meetings to provide for some adequate notice. So if this is approved by council this evening, I'll be working with the police department to coordinate whether or not they have those dates and times and locations identified. If not, how soon they may get that done, or if we'll need to utilize that other strategy with the QR code and the link to the webpage.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm concerned about is, like we had the one meeting at Blackhawk Church, which I wasn't at, but that's not on a transit route, so it's difficult for people to access that. I would prefer that any future meetings we do in a place that's on a transit route. And a lot of the meetings were focused on the western side of the city. Doxa Church has made itself available for different things, so that might be a place to reach out to as well.
Yeah, I already talked to because everyone, they are requesting your feedback for location. I already mentioned that to the chief and Ned about doing something in Southdale. Yeah, that one could. Yeah.
All right.
I'll also throw out maybe Leopold Elementary as a potential, just because it's well utilized, but it's in, it's outside slightly of the city, but it's next to an Badger Rock or Southside Elementary might be one if Docs is not available.
Is this, do we know what size this card is going to be? Because that drives the price.
Right now, I think we're looking at a 5x7 card that would likely contain a schematic photo of the facility, would contain a few bullet points related to the size of the facility, i.e., current proposed cost of a 75,000 or 74,000 square foot facility with training scenario capabilities would be, $49.2 million. And then would also have, again, that QR code that would indicate the ability to take folks right to the city's webpage devoted specifically to this project with all the other information contained therein, whether it's video recordings of the meetings and so forth. I think most of you, if not all of you, have probably been to that page, and you can see that over the last several weeks, a significant amount of information has been added.
So the $12,000, did we get a price for that from a printer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It may not be much more expensive to go to a 5.5 by 8.5 card, since that's a half sheet. Are we printing this in color so that it attracts attention?
I'll need to put in a help desk request to get that button fixed. I don't know if it was quoted in color at this point in time. I would have to check on that. So.
All right, and even a 5 by 8 card, 5.5 by 8.5 card isn't that big with a schematic diagram. So are you just talking about like an exterior view or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just a rendering.
I think the card, as I mentioned to you on the phone, I think we need to be sure it's bilingual. And the card should be printed with some of the bullet points that we've talked about tonight, that, we want to know people's thoughts on the training facility. We want to know people's thoughts on the bathroom situation. And you can't get too complicated because it's just a card. And the text is going to get kind of small by the time you put an address block on there. But those are some of the thoughts I'm having about this. We really need to try to attract as many people to these meetings as possible. So if we didn't bid it in color, these days the difference between color and black and white is pretty minimal. Because they're all using digital printing anyway instead of like an offset press. So.
And if you're talking a 5x7, I don't envision that the cost is significant.
So he's listening to this. So.
Okay. All right. That's all I had, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor of resolution R-10-24 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so next we move to the mayor's reports, and it's, I always... So one thing that I am doing is I continue meeting with business owners or land owners here in the Fitchburg. This morning I presented an update to the Fitchburg Chamber Board. Also, I attended the Dane County City Village Association meeting today that we have. We have those regularly. I also attended to the Greenfield visionary meeting last week, and it was very eye-opening for me because there is a lot of opposition for this neighborhood plan. So I would like you to, if you can take a look at the meetings, because eventually you will need to vote for this, so you need to be ready to know what is the neighbor's perspective about this neighborhood plan. So I want to thank the other thing that we are working on the 2024 goals with Chad. And then other new thing that I am doing, implementing this year, I am meeting with all the chairs of boards, the boards of committees, to have an idea what are their goals for those committees. Some committees are very, very involved, and they have a list of projects that they are going to tackle this year, but I want to be sure that which one are those, they align with my priority, align with the city priority, and also most important is, we are going to have the capacity to tackle all these priorities and vision. So what else? Next week, I am going to attend a mayor's conference in Washington, D.C. That will be great. I'm going to tell you what happened in my return. So what else? And then we are going to the Alders report. Any question for me? Okay. Alders. Oh, I want to thank you all the Public Works crew yesterday for the job, on maintaining our road clean and safe. So, okay, Alders. We're going to start from there, 4.
I too want to thank the Public Works. Did a great job of clearing off the roads, and police and fire as well. Considering we had an incident yesterday, and I hope the police officers are well. And other than that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Nothing to report.
Nothing? Okay. Shannon?
Nothing to report.
Jay?
Just one thing. On my way, as I was driving here tonight, and realizing that I did not know that there was a time change for the meeting, I got a call from a constituent who was wondering why the traffic signals on Scion Road have not been functional yet, because they were supposed to be functional by mid-November. So, do we know anything about that, Chad?
As a matter of fact, I do. We have been waiting for MG&E to complete some work that will allow those traffic
We're always
signals.
waiting for MG&E.
That has been an occasional consideration. We are estimating that those lights will be operational by the end of the month, assuming that the work is completed.
One of the things that's an issue, and this is just something you can pass on to Tim when you talk to him, is the intersection at Scion and Lacey is really, really dark right now at night, because there's no street lights functioning there either. Mm-hmm. So people are concerned.
It's true. I drove that. Good point. Yeah.
It's not so bad at East Sherrill and Lacey because the Quick Trip is there lighting up the sky.
Okay, Gabriela.
A couple things. First, since we've had our first big snow of the year, you should consider adopting your fire hydrant. I say this every year, but homes, like a few minutes can be the difference between a home burning down and being saved. And there was a home, I believe, 2 years in Fitchburg, that probably burned down only because they had to dig out the fire hydrant first. So if you have a fire hydrant on your street or nearby, consider digging it out. They really need 3 feet on all sides, and obviously be cautious about being in the street. Second, also because we finally have a snowstorm, I did want to mention about proper salting. Salt is a great tool to melt ice, but it's not perfect. Only 1 teaspoon of salt can pollute 5 gallons of water to a level that's toxic for freshwater ecosystems. And people need a lot less salt than they think. You need one small mug would de-ice a 20-foot driveway or 10 squares of sidewalk. It's way less than you think. And sometimes people use salt for traction when they could just use sand instead, which is also less expensive. So I'm going to send a couple of images and a website to the alders in case you want to share with your constituents. So consider, using less salt this year. It's good for the environment and it's good for the pocketbook.
Good to know. Too late. But it's
going to snow again. It's going to snow again. And then I also wanted to mention I got an email from a Girl Scout that lives in my community. Her name is Roz, and she wanted to share the things that are important to her about our community. And here's what she said: What's important to me about Fitchburg is that there's lots of parks, a library, and lots of places to live. There's room for apartments. There's room for grocery stores. I like that there's fun places to eat like Rolling Pin Bakery. I like that there is big parks, little parks, and even the splash pad. The accessible park next to the splash pad is so kind and caring because kids in wheelchairs couldn't use the swings and slides at Rose Commons Park or other parks like it. So that's what she shared with me. I thought you guys would like to know that a young girl cares about our community, and that's what she thinks about. Thanks.
Nice. Bill?
I guess keeping with the winter theme, just a reminder for everyone about alternate side parking rules. And also, as somebody who makes a conscious effort to drive less and walk and bike more, be careful on the trails because they're plowed, not always right, not always, in a timely fashion, and also there's no salt put on the trails. So what often happens is that the snow is largely removed, but some is left and it's compact and it becomes very slippery. So wear your yak tracks, ride with your studded tires.
Thank you, Bill. And Joe?
Yeah, not district specific, but this Saturday, January 13th, from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. is the 2024 Martin Luther King Jr. College Readiness and Success Summit. It's actually organized by a Fitchburg resident, Dr. Derek Johnson. It's free. It's geared towards high school students, and it will be at Madison College, Goodman South Campus, which is on 2429 Perry Street. There will be some really good keynote speakers as well as breakout presentations about college. And if you just look up MLK College Readiness Success Summit Madison, you should be able to find the Eventbrite page and reserve a spot, and it includes lunch as well. So,
Thank you, Joe. So next is announcement, and next Common Council meeting will be January 23rd, and the next committee of the whole meeting is January 24th. We are going to continue discussing referendum, isn't it?
Yeah. And we're also going to have a presentation from the Fitchburg Historical Society.
Okay, good to know. Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion. The meeting adjourns at 10:34.
I take it the